Chapter 297, Hardship Guard Armor. Good. 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 Clear Sky. Old Forefather said the word good repeatedly, unrestrained killing intent spilling out around him. In the sky above Clear Sky sect, the clouds and winds suddenly changed. The black clouds were dark like lead. All over the sect, all the disciples shook in fear. I had never thought that the line of succession of Clear Sky would end in my hands. Clear Sky. Old Forefather looked at his palms that were smooth like those of an infant, his voice as calm as water, but the killing intent in the surroundings was becoming increasingly heavy. He raised his head, his eyes cold. I was just in seclusion for a few months, yet so much has changed. The heavens. Even if it is the will of the heavens, they cannot stop this old forefather. He stood and his eyes scanned the disciples that were standing with their heads bowed below him. If I have still not come back in 10 days, ye shall all run for your lives. When he finished, he did not wait for anyone to react before disappearing from the hall. The atmosphere inside Golden Crow City was nervous. In the sky above guard camp, a black energy covered the sky and did not dissipate for days. The Xianxia from Vermilion Bird Camp guarded the gate. Their eyes all held hints of shock. The sharp killing essence was so thick that even they did not feel comfortable. They could not understand how those weak Xianxia slaves could become so terrifying after just a few months. Zhuemo nervously looked at the field and the rows of camp guards lined up in rows. After returning back to Golden Crow City that day, Shu Long and the others had maintained this position motionlessly for 10 days. The thick killing essence on their bodies made them look like the gods of slaughter that came from hell. The black energy around each person was restlessly moving. Shu Long's black energy was so thick that it was not possible to see his figure or features, they were completely covered by the black energy. Are they all right? Zhuemo was very worried. If they can make it through, then they'll be fine. If they can't, then all that is left for them is death. Pu Yao's voice was unconcerned, but Zhuemo could still hear the thread of nervousness contained inside. All of this killing essence needs to be completely absorbed into the body. No one knows everything about the profound mysteries of essence. Mo emphasize slaughter, and their killing essence is the strongest. Their killing essence can become tangible, which is quite a coincidence. However, for them, this opportunity to make a breakthrough is slightly early. I don't know if they can make it through. At this time, Shu Long's body suddenly started to tremble, the black energy that shrouded his body fiercely moving restlessly. It has started. Pu Yao exclaimed. Zhuemo's heart rose. The black energy was like slender worms that continuously burrowed into Shu Long's body. Shu Long's shaking increased in magnitude. Killing essence corroding the body is the most difficult barrier. Pu Yao stared fixedly at Shu Long and said rapidly, their bodies are naturally weak. If they want to keep cultivating, they must get through this gate. If that guy was still alive, this would actually be the simplest matter. Zhuemo didn't dare to move away his eyes. People were not plants, it was impossible to be emotionless upon familiarity. No matter what thoughts these Xiao slaves had, he could clearly feel the trust they had in him. Every single one of them were willing to put their lives on the line for him. The battle outside Golden Crow City had proven this. It would be false to say he was not moved. No matter what, he didn't want anything to happen to Shu Long and the others. These last few days, any materials and talismans that were necessary, no matter how expensive, as long as he had it, he unhesitatingly gave it to them. He didn't dare to have great hopes for their breakthrough. He hadn't cultivated for a long time, but he still understood the importance of a solid foundation in cultivation. Shu Long and the others had very shallow foundations. The possibility of a breakthrough was not high. He only hoped that nothing bad would happen to them. No matter how great of a favor he did for Shu Long and the others, they had fought using their lives for him once. Zhuemo felt that they had repaid him. Even more, he had never felt that he had done any great favors for Xu Long and the others. Xu Long's body shook like dice. The black energy streamed through his nostrils and his skin. The black energy around his body became faint, and his features started to gradually become clear. Suemo couldn't help but make a sound of surprise. Xu Long's features had changed greatly. The weariness on his face had disappeared, the wrinkles had disappeared. He appeared much younger. The skin was black and shiny like they had been polished with oil. Suemo was filled with wonderment. When Xu Long was young, he had been very handsome. A high nose, a knife-sharp brow, a structured face, deep-set eyes, and tightly pressed lips. The flavor of weariness had disappeared to be replaced by a feeling of deep maturity. At his forehead, there was a black crystal. Suemo noticed that some time ago, Xu Long's outside was covered by a suit of shiny black armor. The black armor was connected with his body, tightly pressed against his body, and almost enclosing his whole body. Pia, the black heavy armor was brutally pierced through sheer pressure. Compared to the golden armor guards, Xu Long's black suit of armor was tighter, and more exquisite. It gave the feeling of stability yet was filled with strength. Guard armor. Pu Yao's voice was filled with surprised joy. What is guard armor? When hardship guard is cultivated to a certain level, they will create guard armor. This suit of armor has many abilities. When their cultivation deepens, they will be much stronger. Pu Yao said excitedly, when they break through to the next level, they could gather killing essence to form weapons. By that time, Zuomo's heart was filled with joy. He felt happy for Xu Long. Xu Long's breakthrough seemed like a signal. The other camp guards successively created their guard armor. This process continued for 10 whole hours. In these 10 hours, Suemo didn't dare to leave for an instant. When the last camp guard finished his breakthrough, Xu Long's tightly closed eyes opened. The gaze was as bright as a star and as deep as a star was distant. He lowered his body in a bow, a greeting that Suemo had never seen before. In the name of the hardship guard, to follow Darren, never leaving or abandoning. Xu Long's voice was completely different than before, deep and resonant, pleasing to the ear. In the name of the hardship guard, we follow Darren, never leaving or abandoning. 1,000 hardship guards bowed at the same time. Suemo was stunned. Rong Wei hadn't retreated far away like the other Xianxia. She was looking from a distance on a peak. On a peak nearby there was a large male and a middle-aged person. Other than that, there were some other scattered Xianxia, the great majority of which were Ningmai third stratum Xianxia. It was a rare chance to personally see Jin Dan fight. This wasn't guidance or sparring, but a battle to the death. Up until now, no one had seen the mysterious master of Golden Crow City fight. The only offensive move would probably be activating the Sky Ring Moon Chime formation. However, other than seeing that his skill in formations was extremely deep, it was not possible to see anything about his power. It would be seen in this battle. Rong Wei had other thoughts. Truthfully, she didn't favor the master of Golden Crow City. Clear Sky Old Forefather was a person that even the Marquis was slightly wary of. His power was not so simple. Only Xianxia that knew Jindan would know how strong a Jindan was. To say of nothing else, but the movement speed would leave Ningmai in the dust was enough for a Jindan to be undefeatable. The difference in casting spells was a difference in the nature of power. Fighting using numbers was not something that could be used against Jindan. This meant that Golden Crow City was fated to only defend. It also meant that Clear Sky Old Forefather would always have the initiative. It was a terrifying matter for a Jindan that had the initiative and did not lack attacking moves. Rong Wei definitely would not enter into this battle. She didn't have any qualifications. However, if Golden Crow City was defeated, based on the Marquis's face, she may be able to save that Moon Silver Battle General. It would be too much of a pity if such a young Moon Silver Battle General died here. And if she took the chance to recruit him? That was the idea she had. She reflexively looked at the large male and the middle-aged person nearby. She detected the origins of these two would not be small. Inside, she hoped that these people did not have the same idea that she did. Otherwise, another battle of slaughter could not be avoided. Even more importantly, if the old forefather discovered that young person was a silver battle general, they didn't have to think of the matter anymore. Old forefather would either recruit him or kill him. There was no reason to let such a talent work under someone else. This plan would only succeed if Clear Sky old forefather was ignorant. Suddenly, a wave rippled across the sky in the distance. A vast presence that could not be stopped covered all of Sky Star mountain range. Everyone's expression changed. They felt their body freeze, and were shocked. He had come. The golden light of Golden Crow City suddenly brightened, countless golden energies leaping up and swimming like fish. They moved to cover the sky above Golden Crow City. Each formation battle watchtower lit up with silver lights. In a blink of an eye, all 36 formation battle watchtowers were alight. A golden hoop rose into the sky spreading a burning golden light. Countless golden threads dangled off, and a faint Buddhist chanting could be heard. Clear Sky old forefather seemed to appear out of nowhere in the sky above Golden Crow City. Hair loose, he looked to be in his 40s, but his skin was like that of an infant. A snowy white robe was carelessly tied on his body. He faintly glanced at the people hiding at a distance to watch the fight. Everyone felt their hearts uncontrollably jump, and were even more shocked. The authority of a Jindan was fierce. Little Miss Rong, is the Marquis well? The Clear Sky old forefather faintly opened as though he was speaking of daily activities. Rong Wei could only come out. With the good fortune of old forefather, Marquis is well. Oh, then why is Marquis trying to fight for this little Jia with me? Clear Sky old forefather's voice was still faint. Rong Wei felt her breathing stop and almost fell. Her scalp pricking, she could only say, old forefather is joking. With old forefather here, Marquis won't disturb you. Marquis only heard that stars in daytime has appeared in Little Mountain Jia, and sent this servant to investigate. Before coming Marquis had especially ordered this servant to first inform old forefather. Oh, so that's how it is, old forefather nodded. After this matter, I will go visit the Marquis. If you wish to see this battle, go back 50 more li. The tone that Clear Sky old forefather spoke to her was very warm, but for some unknown reason, Rong Wei's heart froze. She didn't dare to hesitate, and hurriedly retreated 50 li back. Everyone else, retreat 100 li, Clear Sky old forefather said lightly, in 10 breaths. Otherwise, don't blame this old forefather for being impolite. The atmosphere in the air was instantly as heavy as mountains. The other people were even more shocked and retreated in panic. The large male and the middle-aged person's expressions couldn't help but change. They exchanged a look, and retreated at the same time. No one dared to disobey a Jindan. At this time, Clear Sky old forefather's gaze casually turned to Golden Crow City. Chapter 298, Insanity, Who Killed Zhuguang? Clear Sky old forefather's voice was not loud but could be heard from far away. With Clear Sky old forefather stalking outside, Suemo didn't dare to idly relax on the lucky cloud like he did previously. However, this did not stop him for feeling scorn. Gu finally knows why the people from Clear Sky sect waste so many words. It starts at the top. Snort, several people couldn't resist laughing out loud. The tense atmosphere instantly relaxed. Suemo may have been speaking so, but he was actually very nervous inside. Wukong Sword Sect had 4 Jindan experts, but he had never seen any Jindan expert release their presence without any restraint. Even that day that Wei Xing entered Juji, Xian Yen Shibua had not used all of his power. The pressure Clear Sky old forefather gave Suemo was like a whole mountain pressing down. He almost couldn't breathe. Jean Dan was just as terrifying as he expected. He didn't have any interest in wasting words. Since the two had gotten to this step, they didn't need any excuse to fight. What, first diplomacy, then war, wasn't that just nonsense? Formation battle watchtowers, attack together. Suemo gritted out the order. The silver light of the 36 formation battle watchtowers exploded. Hundreds of bolts of hard light covered clear sky old forefather like raindrops. Slightly interesting. Clear sky old forefather smiled easily, his figure suddenly disappearing from his spot. Hundreds of hard lightning bolts missed and vanished into the sky. Hiss, Suemo couldn't help but inhale. Such a fast speed. His consciousness could not catch clear sky old forefather's speed. It was the first time he had encountered a situation like this. The other Xianxia in Golden Crow City all paled. No one could keep up with the speed of clear sky old forefather. He was so fast that even the hard lightning was slightly slower. Even Suemo had predicted that this battle would be extremely difficult, but it seemed the level of difficulty far surpassed his imagination. Without needing Suemo to give the order, the second wave of hard lightning shot towards clear sky old forefather. It was ineffective. Suemo silently shook his head. The other was too fast, so fast that even the hard lightning could not catch up. As expected, clear sky old forefather disappeared from his spot again. Couldn't catch him. Suemo's pupils suddenly contracted. That wasn't right. Clear sky old forefather suddenly appeared in front of a bolt of hard lightning and raised his palm. ZZT ZZT ZZT. The hard lightning seemed to have been stopped by an invisible wall that did not allow it to advance. It stopped at a place 3 CUN from his upright palm. Clear sky old forefather calmly reached out to pinch the hard lightning. Pia pia pia. The explosive hard lightning sounded and the snake-like electrical energies wrapped onto his finger. Clear sky old forefather seemed to not notice it. He put the hard lightning bolt in front of him and examined it. The flashing silver electricity reflected on his face, suddenly light and then it went dim. The idea is clever, very rare, very rare. A hint of shock came onto clear sky old forefather's face. Other than surprise, he seemed to have admiration. As his words landed, two white and narrow fingers pinched. The hard lightning bolt between the fingers was squeezed into countless pieces of electricity and dissipated between his fingers. Golden Crow City was in a deathly silence. Everyone was shocked by this scene. Terror came onto Suemo's face. That was hard lightning. Using fingers to crush hard lightning, that wasn't possible. Suemo's mind was blank. The strength of clear sky old forefather was far out of his imaginations. He stood there, dumbstruck. Clear sky old forefather wasn't in a hurry. He asked faintly, who built the formation battle watchtowers? They can be spared from death. Suemo gradually recovered. Thinking about how stunned he had been, he was slightly embarrassed. So he was this afraid of death. The surroundings were deathly silent. Golden Crow City was completely suppressed by clear sky old forefather. Some people even had expressions of hopelessness. Suemo's gaze accidentally swept across the female Xiao beside him. Just like usual, the female Xiao was silently standing beside him like a wooden person. She was completely unaffected by clear sky old forefather. Suemo was even more embarrassed. Gu wasn't even as good as a woman. He raised his head and gazed at clear sky old forefather floating in the sky. His anger suddenly erupted like fire. This guy looked quite fine, but his intentions were extremely malicious. In this guy's eyes, the lives of other Xianxia were not even worth a jingsher. The more Suemo thought, the angrier he became. If it wasn't for this guy, he would have left Little Mountain Jia a long time ago. He wouldn't be worried and frightened every day like he was now. Gu will play with you to the end today. Suemo became determined. Terror and fear instantly flew away. Continue to shoot. Suemo ordered murderously. The other people stilled. Continue to shoot. But that was completely ineffective. However, when their gaze met Suemo's vicious gaze, they instantly shook. Boss was going all out. They became fully alert, and their terror of Clear Sky Old Forefather instantly dissipated greatly. The formation battle watchtowers lit up again. Scorn spilled out of the corner of Clear Sky Old Forefather's eyes. The light brightening, the hard lightning shot at Clear Sky Old Forefather again like raindrops. Do not stop. Suemo's shout could be heard by the entire city. The Xianxia in the formation battle watchtowers put their all in as their hearts shook. The hard lightning was like rain, and extremely loud. A light laugh passed from within the torrent of hard lightning. Not one bolt of hard lightning managed to touch the hem of Clear Sky Old Forefather's clothes. This time, he did not disappear from his spot, but nimbly dodged among the hard lightning rain. For some unknown reason, his speed did not appear to be quick, but not one hard lightning bolt could hit him. When Clear Sky Old Forefather's light laugh landed in the ears of the Xianxia in the formation battle watchtowers, it instantly enraged all of them. All of them furiously channeled Ling power into the formation battle watchtower. The light of the 36 formation battle watchtowers was so bright one could not look directly at them. The hard lightning was even more heavy like a storm. With a savage presence, it head over. Kiki. The light laugh of Clear Sky Old Forefather clearly passed into the ears of everyone present again. Suemo's tightly pressed lips suddenly curved slightly upwards on one side. Clang! In the sky above Golden Crow City, the Buddha sound hoop suddenly released a ball of golden light. The lingering Buddhist sound rose up. An invisible ripple suddenly spread with Golden Crow City as the center. The killing move of Sky Ring Moon Chime Formation, Moon Chime Sound Storm. Clear Sky Old Forefather who had been composed from the start suddenly froze in surprise. Unable to dodge in time, a bolt of hard lightning hit his face. Pia. Electrical snakes danced on his face. The body of Clear Sky Old Forefather froze. Pia pia pia. Several more bolts of hard lightning hit his body in succession. Boom! The writhing electrical snakes collided with each other, and released a blinding light. Clear Sky Old Forefather was completely covered by the hard lightning, and it was hard to make out his figure. Ha! Suemo was very excited and wanted to jump up. The reason that he had ordered the formation battle watchtowers to continue to shoot was to give Clear Sky Old Forefather the impression that the formation battle watchtowers were their biggest support. His mind was connected with Lil Pagoda. The timing to which the Moon Chime Sound Storm was activated was perfect. So what if he's a Jindan? Didn't Ji just trick him? Suemo was very smug and felt unspeakable comfortable like he had eaten a ginseng fruit. However, he didn't hope that the hard lightning was enough to kill Clear Sky Old Forefather. The other's actions of crushing the hard lightning proved that hard lightning of this degree could not cause fatal damage. However, after this successful attack on Clear Sky Old Forefather, the morale of the troops rose. The heavy pressure that was previously present in the city was swept away. Everyone's faces showed excited expressions. While most of the Xianxia inside Golden Crow City were Ningmai, and was just a level from Jindan, but 90% of the people had never seen Jindan fight before. Every action that Clear Sky Old Forefather had made had all been to show how strong he was, so strong that it made people feel hopeless. Suemo used his actions to prove that Jindan could be hit too. Everyone was greatly motivated. Every one of them believed that this battle might be unparalleled in difficulty, but they did have a chance at victory. They did not fear that battle would be difficult, but they were afraid all of their efforts would be all for naught. The silver light dissipated, and Clear Sky Old Forefather once again appeared in front of everyone. When they clearly saw Clear Sky Old Forefather's state, everyone roared in laughter. Clear Sky Old Forefather's robe now had some holes like that of a beggar. What really set them off uncontrollably was the black burns on his face. Suemo roared with laughter. He suddenly flew into the sky, his right hand raised up high as he shouted at everyone in the city, "Everyone, listen well. Shout with me." Everyone stopped laughing. They raised their heads, furiously gathering their Ling power. Excitement and exhilaration was on everyone's faces. Suemo turned around, and faced Clear Sky Old Forefather. He took a deep breath, pointed with his finger towards Old Forefather, and hollered, "Old Fart." The 7,000 or so people inside Golden Crow City used all their strength to shout at the same time, "Old Fart." The simultaneous shout of more than 7,000 people was so loud that even the mountain peaks trembled, and the echoes reflected back. Suemo's eyes were glaring angrily. Using all the strength in his body, he shouted again, "Don't show off." All of Golden Crow City followed in shouting, "Don't show off." Suemo shouted at the top of his lungs, "Show-offs get struck by lightning." Everyone felt the blood in their bodies shoot towards their heads. Without thinking, the Ling power in their bodies channeling to the limit, more than 7,000 people shouted angrily in unison, "Show-offs get struck by lightning." The shout passed into the surroundings. A sound wave exploded with Golden Crow City as the center, the sound not any less than the previous, moon chime sound storm. The entire mountain valley was echoing, "Struck by lightning, ing. Suemo felt unspeakably great. His hands on his hips, he threw his head back and laughed, "Ha ha 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 ha." An excited blush was on everyone's faces. They all copied Suemo in putting their hands on their hips and throwing their heads back to laugh. Ha 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 ha. The laughter of more than 7,000 people was filled with excitement and bravado, able to be heard from far away. Roan Wei gaped and was stunned. The middle-aged person's face was filled with shock. However, the large male was very excited, repeating to himself, "So great. So great. This is so great." Green and white intermingled on Clear Sky Old Forefather's face. All of the calmness, the mannerisms of an expert was thrown to the back of his head. His hair loose, his eyes gleamed viciously like a poisonous snake waiting to strike. Suemo seemed to be completely mad at this point. He raised his hand again. Everyone saw his hand motions, and suppressed their own voices. Golden Crow City became so silent that the sound of a needle landing on the ground could be heard. Suemo's eyes were entirely red, and he said murderously, "Brothers." He paused slightly and then exploded, "Fuck him." The thousands under him didn't even think as they shouted together, "Fuck him." Suemo felt all the emotions inside reached a peak. He suddenly increased his volume again as he raged, "Kill him." Everyone was glaring as they hollered together, "Kill him." The killing energy was so much that the sky changed color. Chapter 299, The Great Formation and Sonic Lightning Walnut. The Clear Sky Old Forefather felt an angry energy roiling restlessly inside his chest. Without a care to anything else, he took out his flying sword and said darkly, "You all will die." Before the sound landed and Suemo was even able to see the appearance of the flying sword disappeared from in front of Clear Sky Old Forefather. Everyone in Golden Crow City felt the entire sky start to slowly spin. Everything in the surroundings started to become blurry. Suemo suddenly remembered that Huang Zhuoguang used the sky sword essence. Then Clear Sky Old Forefather's sky sword essence would probably be multiple times as pure. Damn it! It would be better if the guy would fly a bit closer. Suemo glanced at Clear Sky Old Forefather that was still far away from Golden Crow City and had to admire the person. Even though he was so angry, he still kept his calm. As expected of a Jindan expert. The spinning sky suddenly lit up with many dots of light like countless stars being ignited. A feeling of extreme danger came into Suemo's mind. He didn't dare to be careless, hurriedly activating the formation. Countless formation scripts suddenly lit up on the walls of Golden Crow City like complex flower patterns. A half-transparent golden Ling shield wrapped Golden Crow City inside. Everyone's hearts eased slightly. At this moment, they heard Clear Sky Old Forefather say clearly, "Land." The dots of light above their heads lit up, and countless swords of light fell from the skies like a rainstorm, crashing against the Ling shield of Golden Crow City. The Ling shield trembled heavily. The sharp sounds of collisions were as rapid as raindrops. Everyone felt their hearts jump at each sound. Suemo pulled Shu Long over. "Use the move you used last time." Shu Long understood and hurried back to the ranks. Shu Long's long hair flying, the black crystal on his forehead, and his eyes bent down. He shouted gravely, "Kill." Threads of black energy erupted from their bodies at an astounding rate. In the blink of an eye, the ranks of guard camp were covered in a black energy that blocked out the sun. As the black energy rose, it was not affected by the Ling shield, and gathered in the sky above Golden Crow City. A ball of restless black clouds covered all of Golden Crow City. The raindrops of sword energies instantly became invisible as they landed in the black cloud. The Clear Sky Old Forefather showed surprise again. Even with all of his knowledge, he did not know what powerful spell the other was using. In the Suomo's Sea of Consciousness, Pu Yao unconcernedly said to the gravestone, "This old fart, just a Jindan, and he dares to posture in front of this Sky Yao. He doesn't want to live." His eyebrow rose, and he snorted, "Fuck him." He suddenly found his tone when he said this was truly too much like Suemo. He instantly chose to close his mouth. As a Sky Yao, copying other people's way of talking, especially Suemo, made him feel he was losing face. It's just a pity that Shu Long and his group has only cultivated for a short amount of time. Otherwise, so boring. Pu Yao said to himself. For the first time, Clear Sky Old Forefather had a serious expression. It had been a scheme of the other that had caused him to be struck by the formation battle watchtowers. But this black cloud clearly was some kind of spell or formation. This was true power. To be able to stop the attack of a Jindan Shouja, it truly could be called powerful. It didn't seem too much like a spell. With a Ningmai cultivation, it wasn't possible to cast such a powerful spell. The only thing he could think of was formations. But a normal sect couldn't possess such a powerful formation. This group of people probably had mighty origins. Clear Sky Old Forefather's heart jumped. He wasn't afraid of this group of Ningmai. Even if he had to kill all of them, it would just take him some more time. What he was worried about was if he killed the young ones, the old one would come. With the wealth of Clear Sky sect, they didn't have such a powerful formation. If an even more powerful expert came, then he would have a terrible ending. Clear Sky Old Forefather knew how much he was worth. Being a ruler in an out-of-the-way place like Little Mountain Jie was achievable, but if he was in the larger Jies, he would never get a turn. However, he turned his thinking around. Since the grievance between the two had already been set and could not be resolved, the best solution was to kill this entire group and prevent the news from spreading. Thinking about this, the viciousness in his eyes grew, and he was filled with murderous intent. He had spent great amount of time on Clear Sky Sword scripture. Other than this flying sword, he had nothing else on his body. He reached out with his finger, and a sword energy multiple zhang thick shot down. The sword energy seemed to collide with the black cloud when it suddenly turned to countless tiny sword energies that nimbly went around the black cloud and smashed on the Ling shield of Golden Crow City. Clang! The countless sword energies were like countless transparent snakes that hit the Ling shield at the same exact moment. When the sound of the collisions gathered together, it was one sound that entered everyone's ears. The Ling shield of Golden Crow City shook fiercely. Suomo's expression changed slightly. He controlled all of Golden Crow City, and he was aware just how strong this attack had been. If something like this came a few more times, the Ling shield of Golden Crow City would collapse. He bit his lips tightly. Xiaoxia at Jindan were too outrageously powerful. What was the grade of this old fart's flying sword? Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. At this point, there was no time to think, they could only bear it. Clear Sky Old Forefather flew in the sky and didn't land at all. He was too far away and so they couldn't use any other moves. His mind suddenly moved. Pointing above his head, he shouted at Shu Long, "Can you change that to a different shape and cover the Ling shield?" Shu Long grimaced and didn't dare to speak. The Crow Fiend Mo kill formation was at its limit, the black cloud slowly started to land. In the end, it landed on the Ling shield. Following that, it started to fall against the Ling shield. After a while, it completely covered the Ling shield. Everyone felt the sky darken and the city was in darkness. Clear Sky Old Forefather saw this and was overjoyed. This way, didn't they trap themselves inside? The black cloud might increase the defenses of the Ling shield, but they had blocked their own sight. Even he couldn't see what was inside the black cloud. He didn't believe the other could see. Idiotic. However, this was the difference in strength. The difference between the two sides was too great. The murderous intent in Clear Sky Old Forefather's eyes reached a peak. How could he miss such a good opportunity? He didn't seem to move but suddenly disappeared from his spot and appeared dozens of zhang above Golden Crow City. Looking at Golden Crow City under his feet that was wrapped in the black cloud, a cruel smile was on his lips. All of you should die. He raised his palm. A flying sword as blue as the sky appeared at the center of his palm and floated silently. He gently pushed up. The flying sword turned to a blue light, flew into the sky and disappeared. Suddenly, a bright dot of light appeared in an extremely distant place far above his head. A smug expression came onto his face. How long has it been since he used this move? Too long. His famed killing move appearing again. It really was emotional. No one could stop this killing move, no one ever had. Golden Crow City was soon to disappear, to be forcefully erased from Sky Star Peak. He felt a slight bit of regret. Truthfully, he liked this little city a lot. It was a truly enchanting little city. But everything would be destroyed. The smile on his face suddenly froze. He saw the mountain peaks across from him suddenly shake vigorously. Large patches of earth shifted in rock slides and revealed the granite underneath. What was this? His body was suddenly restrained by an enormous force. The air in the surroundings seemed to become solid and heavy. He tried to move his body. Each movement became extremely difficult. He felt as though he had landed in an enormous spider web. Trap. His head rang and blanked. Immediately after, large burst of lava sprouted out of the earth and slowly advanced along the hills. He saw a soul-shaking scene underneath his feet. There seemed to be an invisible red pen drawing out vivid red lines among the mountains. These lines were determined in their advance as they created a strange picture. Clear Sky Old Forefather felt there were countless strong and heavy chains tying him tightly so he couldn't move. At this time, the black cloud outside Golden Crow City had dissipated. The damned person flew into the sky. Mo was very proud inside. Did you think Ji couldn't see? Gu has Ling Eye, understand? But he knew this wasn't the time to celebrate. His hand flipping, a sonic lightning walnut covered in golden patterns appeared on his palm. Sonic lightning walnut. Clear Sky Old Forefather saw the sonic lightning walnut in Mo's hands. His expression changed dramatically. Mo didn't waste words, raising his hand and smashing it at Clear Sky Old Forefather. Boom! When the sonic lightning walnut left Mo's palm, it turned to a golden ball of flame the size of his face surrounded by countless silver electrical energies. The sound of the explosions continued, and was extremely shocking. Clear Sky Old Forefather's eyeballs almost fell out. This guy actually used sonic lightning walnuts to make one-use talismans. Was this guy crazy? Sonic lightning walnuts were fourth-grade materials. He suddenly reacted, and his soul almost left his body. Damn it! This was a fourth-grade material. He didn't have the attention to spare for preparing his killing move. The flying sword turned to a stream of light and shot at the sonic lightning walnut flying at Clear Sky Old Forefather. Before he could rejoice, he saw another sonic lightning walnut in Zhuomo's hands. The surface was covered with golden patterns, just like the previous one. Clear Sky Old Forefather instantly turned white. He couldn't spare the energy for anything else. He furiously channeled his Ling power to break from his restraints. All the Ling power inside his body was used. His figure started to move bit by bit. After a while, the speed increased greatly. Seeing the situation, Zhuomo knew this was the most important moment. Disregarding the pain in his heart, he threw and then another walnut appeared in his hand. In one go, he threw out more than 10 sonic lightning walnuts. The golden balls of fire carried a savage presence as they headed for Clear Sky Old Forefather who was moving at turtle speed. The sky filled with the sound of explosions like countless waves of lightning rolling past and caused the mountains to shake. Clear Sky Old Forefather's complexion could not be described by white any longer. He didn't have the bravery. He had never seen someone forge sonic lightning walnuts into one-use talismans. How wealthy was that person that he dared to do so? Boom! Clear Sky Old Forefather's flying sword accurately struck a sonic lightning walnut and exploded. Zhuomo felt light explode in his vision. The light was so blinding that only golden light remained in his eyes and he was unable to see anything else. Boom boom boom. Zhuomo's eyes could only see golden light, so bright that he was blind. He felt an enormous beast had charged at him, and his entire body was thrown into the air. He was dumbstruck. Chapter 300, Sacrifice. Zhuomo barely managed to steady himself. It was the female Xiao that reached out a hand to catch him. Blood was streaming out of his ears and nose. His face was white, the Ling armor and clothes all torn to pieces. The power from the explosions of more than 10 sonic lightning walnuts was far outside of his imagination. Nothing was left at Clear Sky Old Forefather's position. Thinking about that terrifying power, and the strength that could topple mountains and flip the seas, Zhuomo's calves shook. In a flash, he thought about the first time he had used a Yin fire bead. Gu had been careless. The Yin beads he had made in the past were second grade. The stalagmite fire was also a second-grade fire, but the power of the Yin fire bead forged was already great. How could the power of something forged through sonic lightning walnuts and golden crow fire be weak? They were all fourth grade. The golden thread lightning walnut forged from 2 types of fourth-grade materials using the Yin fire bead forging method was unparalleled in its power. If he had been even the slightest bit closer, he would have. He felt fear, but since they finally killed Clear Sky Old Forefather, he hadn't risked his life for nothing. Suddenly, a feeling of danger came into his heart. He reflexively raised his head. An enormous shadow carrying a threatening presence dived down at astounding speed from the sky above his head. Clear Sky Old Forefather hadn't died. Zhuomo's expression changed dramatically. Go die. A shout filled with fury and murderous intent exploded above his head. Clear Sky Old Forefather's clothing and Ling armor and completely broken apart. His hair loose, there was blood flowing out of the corner of his mouth, and his left arm had disappeared. The power of the sonic lightning walnuts had almost destroyed his soul. Under such an emergency, he had used a secret technique at a cost of 3/10 of his cultivation, and had barely managed to escape. But even so, his losses were painful. His left arm had been broken and his flying sword had been destroyed. His most painful loss was the loss of 3/10 of his cultivation. This meant that his cultivation could collapse at any moment and return back to the stage of Ningmai. How could he not be furious? The loss of cultivation was every Xiujia's greatest fear. Today, he definitely had to cut these people into pieces. There was only this one thought in Clear Sky Old Forefather's mind. Clear Sky Sword Scripture was pushed to its limits. The sky above Golden Crow City seemed to solidify. In an instant, the sky seemed to become a vast piece of transparent crystal. Clouds, dust, sunlight, everything was solidified in that moment, motionless and lifeless. Sunlight could not pass through the solidified sky. It created an enormous shadow that covered all of Golden Crow City. The silent killing essence caused everyone to feel terror. Ping! The clear sound of crystal breaking. The solidified crystal-like sky suddenly became covered in a web of cracks. The cracks grew at a rapid rate as though there was an invisible hammer continuously striking this piece of crystal sky. Xu Long was stunned. The road they walked was the one of killing essence, and they were most sensitive to killing essence. At this time, they could not attend to anything else. He shouted, "Kill!" The hearts of everyone in guard camp shook, and they shouted simultaneously, "Kill!" The black cloud rose and turned to a black python several dozen zhang long and several zhang thick. With a hiss, it viciously leapt towards Clear Sky Old Forefather who was above Zhuomo's head. Clear Sky Old Forefather was not alarmed at all. With a cold laugh, he pointed with a finger. Whoosh! The crystal sky covered in cracks above his head turned to large patches of transparent fragments that spun as they turned to a sword essence twister that dove at the black python. Clear Sky Sword Scripture, shattering sky. Boom! The two enormous entities collided without finesse and created an earth-shaking sound. The pitiful Zhuomo was thrown up again by the wave of air. Damn it! Several sky sword essence pieces left bloody marks on his body. He disregarded the pain, and looked towards the battlefield. He couldn't help but inhale sharply. Countless crystal-like fragments of sword essence floated in front of Clear Sky Old Forefather. He was bleeding from his mouth and nose. In the collision against the black python, he hadn't escaped unscathed, but his gaze became even more vicious. When Zhuomo met Clear Sky Old Forefather's gaze, his heart instantly shook. The other was going all out. Xu Long's figure shook, and he gave a muffled grunt, his face pale. The other camp guards staggered and collapsed as though they were drunk. Pu Yao's anger inside the necklace could not be restrained. Trash! You group of trash! One Jindan makes all of you this sorry looking, how can you live in the future? I, the honored Sky Yao, cannot have such trash under my command. A grimace came onto Xu Long's face. They had just made a breakthrough. They needed a period of time to acclimate themselves with their bodies. Their loss this time really hadn't come at a good time. His eyes suddenly widened, and he had a joyous expression. At some unknown time, the female Xiu appeared behind Clear Sky Old Forefather, and pointed. There was a chance. Everyone had ecstatic expressions. They had all seen with their own eyes before how powerful the female Xiu was. The female Xiu was definitely the strongest person in all of Golden Crow City. She finally acted. For some unknown reason, Zhuomo's heart suddenly sank. The purple light in the female Xiu's eyes were as bright as two balls of purple fire. It was the first time he had seen the purple light in her eyes be so bright. Ha 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 ha. All of you, die. Clear Sky Old Forefather laughed madly. The shattered crystal sky above his head suddenly collapsed. Countless transparent sword essence fragments flowed down like an avalanche. Countless fragments passed through Clear Sky Old Forefather's body in burst of blood. Clear Sky Old Forefather did not feel the pain and continued to laugh. Zhuomo's head rang. A suicidal attack. He wanted them to perish together. The area of the sky multiple mu large above Golden Crow City had completely collapsed. Countless, vast, and ethereal sword essence fragments with an unstoppable presence fell from the sky. Countless sword essences penetrated clear sky old forefather's body. They turned from glowing and transparent to becoming blood-stained glass. The vast and ethereal sword essence suddenly had a presence that was determined and tragic. With the sky as the sword, using the body as the guide, blood sky. Everyone's face became pale. It was a terrifying matter if a Jindan Shioha decided to take everyone to the gates of hell with him. Watching from afar, Rong Wei's expression changed. There was only one thought in her mind: Golden Crow City was finished. The large male and the middle-aged person changed expressions at the same time. A thought simultaneously flashed through their minds: Golden Crow City was finished. There was no difficulty for a Jindan Shioja to use a secret technique to release an attack with all their power without regard for the consequences. As a result, fights between Jindan were more cautious. If one side was pushed to the precipice, their last attack before death was extremely terrifying. Even Rong Wei and the others had never seen a Jindan expert go all out. Rong Wei was stunned. She was very knowledgeable, but the power of Clear Sky Old Forefather was far beyond of her predictions. Even among Sky Water Jie's Jindan, Clear Sky Old Forefather's power would definitely rank among the top 3. At this time, she suddenly understood why the Marquis was so wary of Clear Sky Old Forefather. For some reason, she sighed inside. They admired Golden Crow City for pushing a Jindan to the point they had to fight using their life. It was just a pity. The entire sky above Golden Crow City was pulled in. All of the sword essence had completely lost control. As Clear Sky Old Forefather laughed crazily, his entire person exploded into a ball of bloody mist and was completely sucked into the uncontrolled sword essences. An area 50 li in radius around Golden Crow City was completely covered. What made people feel hopeless was that any movement method would be ineffective in leaving the area covered by the sword essence. They couldn't even escape. Unless they also were Jindan and had high-grade movement methods could they escape this calamity. The sky covered everything with the blood-colored sword essence and was unavoidable. Lava flowed among the 7 mountain peaks. Golden Crow City seemed to become hell. Damn it! Hopelessness floated on Zhuo face. Suddenly, his side darkened, and a figure appeared in front of him. It was her. The female Xiao was covered in bloody marks. Blood had soaked through many parts of her clothing. That pair of perfect bare feet was even more heart-moving in the patch of blood. Some time ago, the mask on her face had been destroyed and revealed her hideous face. Zhuo first stilled. When he wanted to speak, the female Xiao suddenly flew over his head. Her arms were open like a big bird, her face raised, and her entire body consumed in the purple flame. She was like a moth flying towards the fire, heading straight for the blood-colored sword tide that was crashing down. The purple fire was burning so high they could not make out her figure. For an unknown reason, Zhuo's chest suddenly felt extreme pain. His tears uncontrollably flooded out, large teardrops falling down his face. What was going on? Who are you? The tears blurred his vision, his chest was in great pain as though something was going to erupt. His ears could only hear the howls of the sword essence covering the sky above his head that had formed a flood and had an appearance of an apocalyptic disaster. Pain. Time suddenly became extremely slow. The extreme pain at his chest was so clear at this moment, like a thread of flame burning constantly. Under that sword essence wave, the figure covered in the purple flame was as minuscule as dust. So painful. The pain burned every one of his nerves. He couldn't suppress it any longer, using all of his strength to shout, "Error!" The enormous pain was like a tide, coming in brutally and sweeping his entire body. He didn't seem to detect that the bright red lava flowing down the mountains seemed to be pulled up by an invisible hand. In the blink of an eye, the lava wrapped around his legs. The damaged great formation on the ground suddenly lit up with a red light. The damaged formation actually managed to still activate. The golden light of Golden Crow City exploded. The lightning from the formation battle watchtowers exploded. The Xianxia inside discovered to their shock that the formation battle watchtowers were completely out of their control. Lava, golden light, and hard lightning headed furiously toward Suemo. Ah! Suemo angrily yelled. His entire body was covered in the lava, hard lightning and golden light were flashing occasionally between the lava. The abnormal change disturbed everyone. Shu Long's expression changed. Just as he thought to move, he heard the Darren inside the necklace shout, "Don't disturb him." He stilled and then had a joyous expression. Within the lava, Suemo felt his consciousness and fleshly body had been separated. He could clearly feel the enormous pain in his body, but at this time, he was like a spectator watching over it all. He could see the 5-element glass bead shaking violently inside his body. He saw the figure above his head that was completely enveloped in the purple fire. She was looking at him. At this point, Suemo could see through the purple fire and the lava without any effort. He could see very clearly. He saw a pair of clear eyes filled with joyful surprise and longing. Chapter 301, Desperate Situation. Under the colossal wave of sword energies, the female Xiao enveloped in purple flames looked at Suemo deeply. Suemo had a disquieting feeling that time was pulled extremely long in this moment. Their gazes met. The female Xiao moved away her eyes, and raised her face again to look at the sword energies falling down towards her. Pia pia pia. Bursts of blood exploded out from her body. She disregarded them. The blood sprayed out and landed in the purple fire, which was like a blood-sucking monster that greedily absorbed the fresh blood. The purple fire grew, snapping and crackling. The hands covered in fresh blood slowly rose up over her head. She took a position as if she was pushing upwards. The purple fire around her quickly streamed towards her upright arms. It was just a simple movement, but it made anyone watching feel it was determined and grim. Her arms pushed upwards. 2 streams of purple fire flowed from her arms and connected end to end. It formed a purple disk of fire about 10 zhang large. All the fire on the female Xiao's body flowed into the purple fire disk without a drop remaining. The purple fire disk spun eerily over her head. Suemo looked on dazedly. The female Xiao, who didn't have any trace of purple fire left on her, no longer bleeding from her wounds, but her torn clothes had already become soaked in blood. Only that pair of bare feet was white and left untouched. What shocked him even more was that he could not feel any hint of a presence from the female Xiao. She seemed to have suddenly disappeared, like she had died. Looking coldly from the side, Suemo's emotions suddenly rippled violently. His howls were like that of a wild beast being burned. Lava, hard lightning, and golden light furiously burrowed into his body destructively as they headed for the deepest reaches of his body. The ripple of his emotions was like pouring oil onto the fire. His situation became even more terrible. Any place that was slightly weak was completely burned up when the golden light, hard lightning, and lava passed. Even the muscles and bones that had been sufficiently tempered before were wavering under such a brutal baptism. But at this moment, all of Suemo's attention was attracted by the female Xiao. A stream of tears continuously flowed from his eyes, yet he did not detect it. The 5-element glass bead in his chest jumped rhythmically like a heart, as though something was going to break through. She definitely had more than a common connection to him. At this point, Suemo was certain of this point. The enchanting purple fire disk spun above the female Xiao's head. A power that made people feel trepidation slowly spread. "Who are you?" Suemo's emotional upheaval became even more violent. He wanted to ask her this question, but his body was completely out of his control. No matter how he tried, he could not reclaim control of his own body. The collapsing sword essence came even closer. Zhuo Mo's panic increased. Damn it! Why couldn't he control his own body? His heart had a fierce impulse. He wanted to control his own body. He wanted to ask her why. He didn't want her shield him from the front. Damn it! Zhuo Mo felt there was a ball of fire burning in his chest. He had never had an impulse that was as strong as this one. He knew if he took control of his body at this moment, his soul would have to endure the flames. But, he wanted. Zhuo Mo's body shook violently. His screams became even more furious. To ask her. His eyes were bright red and bloodshot. The tendons in his forehead had bulged out. The blood vessels in his body were like earthworms. The sword essence sped increasingly near the female Xiao and was less than 10 zhang from the purple fire disk. The female Xiao suddenly lowered her head to look at him. Something seemed to explode in Zhuo Mo's mind. Boom! His mind blanked. All of the Ling power, consciousness, every drop of power contained in every bit of his muscles suddenly exploded. His body suddenly created an extremely strong attraction. The lava, hard lightning, and golden light that had been rampaging inside his body were sucked in. A familiar yet unfamiliar voice echoed. Don't forget, even in death, you cannot forget, layering and in waves like thunder. In the sky, the colossal sword essence heavily collided on the purple fire disk. Pew pew pew. When a sword energy landed inside the purple fire disk, it was like pouring water into hot oil. Purple wisps of flame spat forth. The sword energies were relentless like a flood as they attacked the purple fire disk. The arms of the female Xiao suddenly became weighted, and her body shook slightly. Zhuo Mo was like a wild beast at death's door as he furiously howled. The body of the female Xiao shook. Zhuo Mo's body shook at the same time. He was like an enraged wild beast. Why? His body suddenly started to tremble. An expression of pain came onto his face. His voice uncontrollably became smaller. Why, even if his consciousness had been cultivated, but the pain from his soul being burned would not decrease due to that. The different kinds of forces inside his body seesawed. Enormous pain came from the burning of his soul. He felt like a shrimp being boiled. Every part of his body was trembling. He wanted to ask her, why? The arms of the female Xiao were slowly pushed down. An astounding force passed from the purple fire disk. He gritted his teeth. A stream of fresh blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. He wanted to ask her, why? Zhuo Mo's entire body shook fiercely, but he didn't shout this time. He had a deathly stare as he bit down on his teeth, a stream of fresh blood coming out of the corner of his mouth. Boom! The flames of the purple fire disk frantically consumed, but there were too many sword energies that forcibly suppressed the flames of the purple fire disk. They continuously pushed down on the purple fire disk. The female Xiao shook even harder. With a muffled grunt, her body suddenly sank down. He wanted to ask her, why below the female Xiao. Zhuo Mo raised his head with difficulty. His eyes were entirely red and filled with blood. An amazing change was happening to his body. The silver hard lightning swam across the surface of his body like countless silver snakes. The golden light furiously burrowed into his bones and the threads of pure earth fire inside the crimson lava crawled into his channels. Having lost their targets, the Ling and spiritual power slowly steadied. Boom! The figure of the female Xiao above him sank again. The golden light of the Ling shield of Golden Crow City was burning. When the sky full of sword energies smashed onto it, the golden Ling shield rippled. Everyone knew this was the most crucial time, and put all of their power into fighting. Xu Long led the guard camp and activated the Crow Fiend Mo killing formation again. The battle formations of Vermilion Bird Camp were primary offensive. Defense was not one of their talents. The only thing they could do was to activate some of the simpler defensive formations, and contribute as much as they could. Lilith Pagoda spun into a 5-colored afterimage. The Sky Ring Moon Chime formation was pressed to its limits. The Shilja of the eastern and western camps seemed to have gone insane as they furiously switched out the Jingxia. Everyone knew that if the Ling shield broke, no one could escape the calamity. At this time, everyone directly experienced just how strong the female Xiao was. With just her own power, she could stop such a terrifying sword essence. It really was hard to imagine. They had to rely on the big formation of Golden Crow City, and were still wavering when they used all their power. The Ling shield could break at any time. Everyone's face was filled with hopelessness. The sword essence coming down seemed to be endless and unstoppable. A nearby mountain peak was brutally destroyed, only leaving behind the bottom half. If they were not personally experiencing it, no one could imagine that sword essence could reach such a terrifying level. Were their lives really going to be lost here today? This thought uncontrollably flashed across everyone's mind. Gong Sun Cha called over Xia Shan, Ma Fan, and a few others. He said in a low voice, "We probably can't hold out for much longer. Later when the city's Ling shield breaks, you guys take boss and break through." Everyone's face was sorrowful. Each of them tightly bit their lips and didn't speak. Shu Long's nose and mouth bled blood. He bit down on his teeth and continued to channel the Crow Fiend Mo kill formation. Almost everyone in guard camp were bleeding from their nose and mouth. Boom! The enormous power surpassed the limits that the Crow Fiend Mo kill formation could tolerate. Shu Long felt as though someone hammered him hard. His entire body was thrown into the air. The camp guards behind him were also thrown up. The Crow Fiend Mo kill formation was broken. Everyone's expression changed. Without the Crow Fiend Mo kill formation, the Ling shield of Golden Crow City could not last for long. Just as everyone felt it was hopeless, someone suddenly said in a trembling voice, "Boss, boss." Many people instinctively moved their gaze. Even if they would die here today, it wasn't a bad idea if Boss could escape. Many people hoped the female Xiao could take Boss and escape this place. They were filled with terror and hopelessness, but they were not regretful. With Boss, they had a loud and great run. Compared to the lifeless days they had lived before, it was the difference between the earth and the sky. From the bottom of their hearts, they hoped that Boss could live. So when someone exclaimed, many people couldn't resist moving their eyes. Zhuo Mo's body was covered in red, gold, and silver. He was standing upright like a spear. His features were still twisted, but it gave people a completely different feeling. He raised his head and looked at the female Xiao. For some unknown reason, a thread of hope rose in everyone's hearts at the same time. Faster, faster. Panic flashed through Zhuo Mo's eyes. The rampaging forces inside his body had gradually stabilized. His body had gradually returned to his control. He seemed to have entered an unfamiliar body and slowly recovered his strength. It wasn't a long process, but the timing really made him panic. Countless bits of hard lightning swam across the surface of his body, a golden liquid flowed in his bones, the channels were filled with pure and crimson earth fire, his body that had been tempered again. His body had undergone another breakthrough, but at this time, there was no joy in him. He looked with panic at the figure above him. Without the purple fire, the female Xiao looked as weak as a dry leaf in the wind. Boom! The female Xiao's figure sank again, her long hair flying. Faster! Zhuo Mo's heart suddenly ached. Boom! The female Xiao sank once more. Sparks flew off the purple fire disk and it showed signs of collapsing. Motherfucking faster! Zhuo Mo's eyes suddenly turned red. Boom! The female Xiao was like a nail that was being hammered down, and unable to stop. Boom! The purple fire disk finally could not stand it anymore. It turned to countless wisps of purple fire and disappeared into the air. The female Xiao seemed to be heavily struck. Her eyes unfocused, her body dropped down at an even more rapid rate. Zhuo Mo's mind exploded, his body exploded and suddenly became open. All of his strength suddenly poured into his body like water. He disappeared from his spot. In the air, his figure was arched. His back towards the sky, the female Xiao was shielded against his chest. His right hand held a handful of golden thread lightning walnuts. Like he was crazy, he threw them viciously at the howling sword essence. Go away. Chapter 302, A New Beginning. Boom. More than 10 sonic lightning walnut exploded at the same time. A blinding and scorching light passed through his back. Zhuo Mo felt his back was heavily struck. His throat turned sweet and then he spat out blood. Before he had the time to respond, like a meteorite falling from the sky, he and the female Xiao smashed heavily into the dirt. Ping! The ground was really hard. That was the last thought before Zhuo Mo fainted. Ma Fan looked at the half-collapsed city walls. Thinking about the scene from 2 days ago, he still felt fear. The big formation inside Golden Crow City had been completely damaged, and almost all of the formation battle watchtowers were ruined. Most importantly, Boss had thrown out a huge number of sonic lightning walnuts to save everybody. The simultaneous explosion of the sonic lightning walnuts had forcibly cleared out an empty area 20 mu in diameter. The mountains around Golden Crow City did not have such good luck and had been bombarded and left half standing. Not one mountain peak remained whole. There was no untouched land near Golden Crow City. Everything was in disarray. In the sky, it was possible to see Xiuzha from Vermilion Bird Camp patrolling everywhere. After the battle, some Xiuzha had nefarious aims, and wanted to get rich. They were completely annihilated by the members of Vermilion Bird Camp, who had a whole belly full of frustration. In the defense of the city, Vermilion Bird Camp's utility had been pitifully small. This made them feel especially irritated. They had almost all died, and were even unable to take Boss and escape. To the Vermilion Bird Camp that had been trained through many battles and successfully won, this undoubtedly was a great humiliation. No one had expected that, in the end, Boss had saved everyone. Thinking about it now, it still seemed like a dream. There was not much joy on Ma Fan's face. Boss was still unconscious now. This caused a heavy cloud to settle on everyone's hearts. In this present group, Boss was the true leader. No one could imagine what they would become if Boss wasn't present. Maybe this group that had been so difficult to gather together would face a fate of collapse. Ma Fan chewed on a stalk of green grass as his feet unconsciously kicked pebbles. Old Fan, old Fan. His ears suddenly heard Xia Shan's joyous voice. Oh. He turned his face and dazedly responded. Xia Shan said urgently, Boss woke up. It was as though Ma Fan was struck by lightning. After a moment, he suddenly reacted, and asked hurriedly, Boss woke up. He just woke up. It was just my turn to stand guard. Xia Shan said with slight pride. That's great. Ma Fan muttered to himself. Isn't it? This is great. The news that Zhuo Mo woke up quickly spread through Golden Crow City. Golden Crow City rejoiced, the gloom of the past days swept away. Zhuo Mo felt his body hurt all over as though it was being torn apart. He couldn't help but give a deep groan. Looking at the familiar faces, joy at surviving the calamity washed over his heart. His expression suddenly changed and asked Gongsun Cha, where's the female Xiao? Gongsun Cha's expression became strange. How is she? Zhuo Mo was very alarmed. Even though he did not know the actual situation, but there definitely was a great connection between him and the female Xiao. The scene of the female Xiao sacrificing herself to save him, and that pair of eyes filled with emotion flashed in front of his eyes. Who are you? Xuemo could find the answer to many of the problems haunting him on her body. She could not die. Seeing Xuemo's panic, Gongsun Cha did not joke and revealed, "Come and you'll understand." When Xuemo saw the female Xiao, he was dumbstruck. The female Xiao silently sat in the corner of the room, and didn't seem to notice the existence of the two of them. Her cultivation, Xuemo asked in a trembling voice. Gongsun Cha shook his head. She woke up before you did, but for some reason, her cultivation disappeared. Xuemo's heart suddenly sank. He silently walked in front of the female Xiao. When he saw the female Xiao's empty eyes, his heart couldn't help but shake, and his nose felt sore. That pair of clear and joyous eyes. She sat silently. When Xuemo walked in front of her, she did not seem to detect it. Xuemo reached out and waved a hand in front of her. She still did not respond. Inspect her body, Pu Yao's voice suddenly sounded. He was quite stern. Xuemo tightly pressed together his lips, reached out a hand and placed it on her body. She was motionless like a wooden puppet. Xuemo's expression changed. The channels inside her body had all broke, the strange purple power had disappeared to leave behind an extremely minuscule thread of life as though it was a candle flickering in the wind, that could be extinguished at any time. He couldn't even feel her soul. Why was it like this? Xuemo's mind rang and blanked. After a long time, he refocused. Looking at the female Xiao's hideous and wooden face, especially when his gaze landed on the empty pupils, a certain chord in his heart was gently plucked. The confused gaze suddenly became determined. He entered the sea of consciousness and looked at Pu Yao. Pu Yao glanced at him and said, "I know what you want to ask. Truthfully, it's very difficult." Pu Yao's voice was deep and solemn without any of the mockery it usually held. Xuemo's expression was serious. "Tell me." Pu Yao did not raise any conditions. He looked at Xuemo, and threw a ball of light with formation scripts floating on the surface. He said, "This is, adversity overcoming scripture. I got it from a Diana show. Maybe it can be of use." Xuemo's mind jumped and he hurriedly took the light ball. "Don't be happy prematurely. This scripture can only support this thread of life remaining in her body." Pu Yao said heavily, "If you want to save her, the best method is to get a water cloud embryo." Water cloud embryo? Xuemo asked curiously. He hadn't ever heard this name before. Water cloud embryo can nurture souls, and is the best for soul injuries. Soul injuries? Her secret technique is very strange. It burns the soul to create great power. Pu Yao's expression was grave. It is the first time I have seen such a strange secret skill. Her origins, I'm afraid, are not simple. When he finished, Pu Yao looked at Xuemo. He felt somewhat strange inside. Xuemo probably wasn't simple himself since he had a connection with such a complex female Xiao. However, he had never seen uncommon qualities in Xuemo. Pu Yao gathered his thoughts and continued, "She should have definitely died this time, but fortunately, she had left a soul thought inside your body." Xuemo's boy shocked and he interrupted, "She has a soul thought inside my body." "Her soul thought is inside that 5-element glass bead in your body." Pu Yao secretly celebrated that he had not crushed that bead. Otherwise, it would be very troublesome now. 5-element glass bead, Xuemo murmured to himself. When your cultivation reaches a certain level, you can see some of the mysteries inside, Pu Yao said. This 5-element glass bead is a very rare treasure. Xuemo's hand unconsciously balled into a fist. He was suddenly filled with motivation. For a long time, he had lacked a clear goal, including his time at Wukong Mountain. Long days of low-level living had caused his expectations of life to be very low. When his most basic needs were fulfilled, he had been lost. The unexpected encounter between him and the female Xiao now seemed like fate. He knew the female Xiao definitely was very important to him. How important would the connection be that the other would place a soul thought inside his body? He could not think of it, but he knew that no one other than the female Xiao could do this. Just this was enough. Leaving the sea of consciousness, he looked at the female Xiao. Her disfigured and wooden face could not cause any revulsion in him now. Suddenly, he thought of his past zombie face, and laughed. The fate of the zombie and female ghost. In the future, you will be a Gui. The female Xiao was unmoved. Adversity overcoming scripture was extremely cryptic and complex. The main reason was that Sui Mo didn't know much about many of the things of Diana Xiao. Pu Yao did not know much about Diana Xiao either. According to him, he had taken this from the body of a Diana Xiao he killed. Luckily, Sui Mo had Zhong Ru, who was a much more orthodox Diana Xiao, to help him resolve many of the parts. Pu Yao's judgment was correct. Adversity overcoming scripture was able to help a Gui stabilize the thread of life. Under the Buddha mantra, the deathly presence on a Gui's body dissipated greatly. Zhuo Mo was very encouraged and worked even harder. After a few days, Gongsun Cha led a female Xiao to Zhuo Mo. Zhuo Mo looked with puzzlement at Gongsun Cha. Shitty, this is Miss Rome Wei. Gongsun Cha first made introductions and then said, she hopes to work with us. With us? Sui Mo stilled. Rome Wei bowed and said, this one is from Sky Water Jie's house of the Crow Marquis and has been ordered to come to Little Mountain Jie to investigate stars in daytime. This one asks Darren for your aid. She then took out a few talismans. A small token of our intentions, please accept them. Stars in daytime. Zhuo Mo's heart jumped. Damn it, stars in daytime, wasn't that caused by him? What were the origins of this Crow Marquis house, why were they investigating him? His heart instantly became wary. He pretended to be confused and asked, we did see the stars in daytime, but what does this apparition mean? Miss Rome Wei, please teach us. This one does dare to teach. Rome Wei bowed slightly. The old records say that when stars in daytime appear, there are great Yao and great Emo healing. Great Yao and great Emo. Zhuo Mo's heart jumped again. He finally understood. It seemed he needed to be careful in the future. If this appeared a few more times, he would be in danger. And, the Marquis believes Great Yao may have infiltrated Little Mountain Jie, Rome Wei said. This was the most probable guess. A Yao army had appeared in Little Mountain Jie, and now a Great Yao, that wasn't too much of a surprise. But what was there in Little Mountain Jie that made the Yao put so much effort and even be injured? Zhuo Mo secretly released a breath inside. He hurriedly shook his head. Miss Rong is joking. We aren't enough if a Yao army comes, much less a Great Yao. We plan on immediately leaving Little Mountain Jie to go to Sky Water Jie. Your house resides in Sky Water Jie, and we are unfamiliar with the area. At that time, please guide us. Rong Wei was slightly disappointed, but she had expected this. Unless there was a special order, no one was willing to stay for long in Little Mountain Jie. She had come this time with the intentions of making acquaintances. The power of Golden Crow City, even if they entered Sky Water Jie, would definitely be a significant force. There were no disadvantages to forming good relationship now. Before, she had the idea of recruiting Gongsun Cha, but after personally seeing the battle that day, her thought had instantly disappeared. This kind of person was not someone she could recruit. Fortunately, the aim of her visit this time had been realized. She smiled slightly and took out a jade card to hand to Zhuo Mo. This one still has duties, and cannot accompany everyone. It is very regretful. If you have any problem, you can take this card to travel to the house of the Crow Marquis. The Marquis would definitely welcome everyone. The two sides chatted a bit more before Rong Wei left. "We are going to Sky Water Jie?" Gong Sun Cha suddenly asked. 1. Friendly reminder from Wandering Yumi of Doom. During the first few interactions between Pu and Zhuai Mo angered Pu to the point Pu was going to kill him. The bead attempted to intervene and save Zhuai Mo. Pu intended to destroy the bead, but the gravestone stopped him. Chapter 303, Leaving Little Mountain Jie. We need to leave this place quickly, Zhuai Mo said decisively. Little Mountain Jie isn't a safe place. When are we leaving? Gong Sun Cha then asked. Get everyone to pack, then prepare for departure. Let them prepare well. When we pass through the Clear Sky sect, there may be a hard battle. All right. Gong Sun Cha instantly went out to prepare. Everyone in Golden Crow City started to move. Zhuai Mo released all of the outer hall captives. Clear Sky Old Forefather had been killed, which was a fatal blow to the outer hall Xianxia. At this point, no one would be willing to sell their life for Clear Sky sect. The Battle of Golden Crow City had shaken Little Mountain Jie. Right now, everyone knew that the sky had changed for Little Mountain Jie and no one was willing to stay in this cage. In the span of a few days, almost all of the remaining Xianxia from Little Mountain Jie had gathered outside Golden Crow City. They looked with awe at this little town of which only remained half standing. Everyone knew this place held the hope to leave Little Mountain Jie. No one made trouble, they only watched from a distance. When Vermilion Bird Camp's patrols passed, many people bowed of their own initiative. From a distance, there was a spectacularly dense patch of Xianxia outside Golden Crow City. Will there be trouble? Nian Lu asked worriedly. Who's afraid? Lei Peng was unconcerned. We can kill as many of these as they come. Ha, that's true. Pride flashed across Nian Lu's face. Before, who could have thought there would be a day like this? It's worth it even if I die. Lei Peng rumbled, I don't want to die. Boss still has so much good stuff. Maybe we can cultivate to Jindan in the future. You really dare to think? Nian Lu looked into the distance. Suddenly the order to gather came from below. The two exchanged a look. They were going to depart. The Little Mountain Jie Xianxia, who had been keeping a constant eye on Golden Crow City, shifted. After a short while, Vermilion Bird Camp was the first to ascend into the air. The Vermilion Bird Camp of more than 700 people was famed in Little Mountain Jie. When Vermilion Bird Camp collectively flew into the air, many of the people watching from afar sighed with admiration. Look! That's Vermilion Bird Camp. The strongest army of Little Mountain Jie. Whoa! That presence is really frightening. I wonder if they are still hiring. Death would be worth it if I could enter such a troop. Chatter rose among the crowd. People were filled with admiration and awe as they looked at this powerful troop. No one dared to underestimate them, even if there were only 700 people. Vermilion Bird Camp quickly spread out after getting up into the air. They were wary and cautious. Following them were the 5 gigantic slave transporting boats that slowly rose. There were 1,000 black armor camp guards standing on the lead slave transport ship. That was Guard Camp, who became famous in one battle. They were not skilled in flying. The enormous and steady slave transporting boats were perfect for them. The pressure of 1,000 camp guards standing on the deck gave people was unparalleled. The appearance of Guard Camp caused a small crescendo of murmuring. The Xianxia that had personally seen the heart-shaking battle described the terrifying strength of Guard Camp to the others. The ferocious killing energy and the ancient battle armor that they wore, which had long disappeared into the river of history, became the topics that interested the people the most. The other 4 slave transporting boats were used for the Eastern Camp, Western Camp and non-combat Xianxia. And the last boat was filled with all kinds of materials. Slave transporting boats were enormous. In Little Mountain Jie, 5 slave-transporting boats definitely counted as a gigantic fleet. Adding on Vermilion Bird Camp and Guard Camp, this definitely was the strongest fleet of Little Mountain Jia. Zhuemo looked at Golden Crow City below and was filled with emotion. It just had been a few short days, but Golden Crow City had completely transformed. It was broken and shattered. Possibly in the future, this place would become ruins of an ancient city. He raised his head and looked at the sky filled with Xianxia in a dense cloud that did not end. He couldn't help but sigh again. After this departure, Little Mountain Jia would become a dead Jia without any people. Maybe this place would become the front lines like Bloody Sky Metropolis Jia had previously been, a paradise of Yamo. Oh, he really had no standing to sigh. Thinking about Pu Yao in his sea of consciousness, Zhuemo grimaced. However, they could finally leave this place. He looked at Agui beside him. Agui was sitting silently. He turned his face and said to Gong Sun Cha, "Depart." The 5 slave-transporting boats slowly started to fly forward. Many people looked back at Golden Crow City, their eyes filled with reluctance. This little city had given them hope and sunlight. This little city would become a place they would reminiscence for their entire life. The vast troop flew towards the Jia River toward Sky Water Jia. Along the way, there was a constant stream of Xianxia merging with their convoy. The troop became even larger. Each person's face was filled with excitement and exhilaration. They looked with awe at the figure standing on the deck of the lead slave transport ship. There was no light coming from the Ling armor, the not-so-broad figure did not have a grand presence, this normal-looking youth that was outrageously young gave them hope and led them to escape this cage. Not far from their troop, a troop of Yao soldiers watched as they left. "Darren, are we not pursuing them?" "No, we are too exhausted. But, the order from the Council of Elders is to take Little Mountain Jia at the fastest speed possible, not to do anything else." Rong Wei entered this convoy along the way. Personally seeing this scene, she sighed inside. After this hard battle, the master of Golden Crow City had become the true king of Little Mountain Jia. If he sent down an order right now, there definitely would be many people willing to sell their life for him. In the remaining Xianxia of Little Mountain Jia, there was not another person that could be spoken of in the same terms as him. The Xianxia from Little Mountain Jia had all chosen to leave. Her mission did not have much meaning then. She didn't think that she could investigate and find something in Little Mountain Jia with just the handful of compound guards she had come with. The best choice right now was to leave with the master of Golden Crow City. She held a high opinion of the master of Golden Crow City. With the group of people under his command, the master of Golden Crow City would be invincible wherever he went. From the battle, she had seen how powerful the master of Golden Crow City was. It was a profitable matter to give someone friendship when they were in their most difficult straits. "Good day, City Master." Rong Wei went over and bowed. With a smile, she said, "We will be traveling with you." Zhuemo smiled. "Miss Rong is too courteous." As he finished, he had his people make room. Rong Wei was not courteous and stepped onto the slave-transporting boat. The compound guards all held their head and chests high, and shared in the glory. "What does City Master plan to do for the future?" Rong Wei tilted her head and asked. "We'll plan each step when we get there." Zhuemo was very wary of this female Xiao that was investigating stars in daytime. Sky Water Jia isn't a bad place. City Master could consider it, Rong Wei said. Zhuemo shook his head. "Too dangerous, the Yao army can enter Little Mountain Jia at any time. Sky Water Jia is this close to Little Mountain Jia, it is slightly dangerous." Rong Wei stilled. Upon further thought, she instantly stopped speaking. The other's words were very reasonable. She considered whether or not she should urge the Marquis to move the house of the Crow Marquis to a place further away when she returned. Pu Yao suddenly spoke up inside Zhuemo's mind, "Ask her if she has a Jia map." Hearing this, Zhuo Mo's mind moved. He asked Rong Wei, speaking of that, this one has something to request. Oh, please speak, Rong Wei said cautiously. This one's Jia map was lost, and wants to borrow and copy Miss Rong's Jia map, Zhuo Mo said without blushing or an increase in his heartbeat. Hearing this, Rong Wei's heart settled. She said, no problem, but the markings on this one's Jia river are limited, and hope that city master will not be too disappointed. Zhuo Mo hurriedly gave his thanks, took out a blank jade scroll and copied. After he finished, he gave the Jia map jade scroll back to the other and went back to his cabin after bidding farewell. Once he entered the boat cabin, he couldn't wait and took out the Jia map to examine. The Jia map was filled with the names of all the Jia and the Jia rivers connecting them. Zhuo Mo instantly felt his vision broaden. Only today did he discover the general location of Sky Moon Jia and Little Mountain Jia. Sky Moon Jia and Little Mountain Jia were at the corner of the entire Jia map. As expected, it was rural area. He smacked his lips and rubbed his chin as he read intensely, unaware that Pu Yao had also crowded next to him and was examining the Jia map. Such a small Jia map. Pu Yao said with slightly disdain. It's already a lot. There's more than 300 Jia labeled on here. 300 Jia is a lot. Pu Yao seemed to have heard a great joke. Country bumpkin. Zhuo Mo ignored him. It was the first time he saw a Jia map and he was very curious. The labels on the Jia map were very detailed. It even included the specialty products of each Jia. He read on with interest. Around the Jia map were large areas of blank space. Those were probably areas that had never been mapped before. He quickly discovered that there was no information on water cloud embryos on the Jia map. Which Jia produces water cloud embryos? I don't know, Pu Yao said irritably, I'm not familiar with your Xiaoxia territories. Aren't you a Sky Yao? You don't even know this. Zhuo Mo egged him on. Pu Yao tilted his head and smirked coldly. I know of a place, but it is in a Yao Jia, you dare to go? Zhuo Mo instantly was speechless. It seemed he had to do a search when he got to Sky Water Jia. When the vast troop reached Clear Sky Sec's base, they found it was completely empty. Zhuo Mo, who had been expecting another hard battle, was very surprised. When they found out the Clear Sky Sect disciples had all run away, cheers rang out from the troop. Zhuo Mo did not doubt that if any Clear Sky Sect disciples' identity was revealed, and they encountered any Xiaoxia that escaped from Little Mountain Jia, they would die a terrible death. Every single one of the surviving Xiaoxia from Little Mountain Jia hated Clear Sky Sect to the bone. What Zhuo Mo felt was a pity was everything good in Clear Sky Sect had been cleaned out. He didn't stop there, followed the Jia River, and flew toward Sky Water Jia. When they arrived at the airspace above the Jia River, many of the Xiaoxia's tears uncontrollably flowed. They finally believed that they were going to leave this hell-like cage. They could finally return to the life they had been familiar with before. This made everyone excited. Cheers, sobs, venting roars. The sky above the Jia River was very busy. Zhuo Mo wasn't very excited. He looked at a Gui sitting silently beside him, his gaze determined. The other end of the Jia River was just a new beginning. Chapter 304, Great Day Mo Physique. The Jia rivers were hard to cross. Every Jia river was very lengthy. Inside the cabin, Zhuo Mo was focused on cultivation. Golden core. My golden core. Once Pu Yao spoke of the Jindan, he started to become irritable. Fought a Jindan and almost lost your little life, and you didn't get me the golden core. Zhuo Mo was slightly embarrassed. Before, he had promised to give a Jindan to Pu Yao, but that was unfulfilled. Thinking about it now, Jindan were not as terrifying as he imagined. As long as he had the right method, it was possible to defeat a Jindan. After careful thought, the strongest quality of a Jindan was their speed. This caused Jindan to have the absolute advantage when facing Ningmai Shouja. For a powerful Jindan to kill with a strike was not uncommon, but it was not possible for one strike to kill 10 Ningmai. In comparison, a Jindan's defensive advantage was the least eye-catching. Even though the sword energies of a single Ningmai could not seriously wound them, but if dozens of sword energies struck at the same time, even a Jindan could not bear it. What was most scary was if the Jindan decided to kill everyone at the expense of their life. If a Jindan decided to go all out, the power they could release was multiple times what it was normally. Experience was the most valuable. With the experience from last time, if he had to fight with Clear Sky Old Forefather again, he even had the confidence to kill Clear Sky Old Forefather with just Vermilion Bird Camp. Facing Pu Yao's mockery and scorn, he could only grimace inside. The reason the battle against Clear Sky Old Forefather had been so difficult was because he had been frightened by the connotations of a Jindan Shouja. Now he knew that being on the defense would cause him to become even more reactive when facing a Jindan Shouja. Pu Yao clearly knew this. At this point, his wailing was just to satisfy his mouth. Hearing Pu Yao natter at his ears, Swa Mo really could not bear it any longer. He stopped his cultivation. All right. I'll make it up to you. He then muttered, an honored Sky Yao is actually, humph. Pu Yao pretended not to hear. After a while, he could resist tempting Swa Mo, actually, Jindan are very easy to kill. You didn't have the abilities before, but it is different now. Look, you have so many people under your command, and you also made a breakthrough. Swa Mo's mind jumped. Let's talk more about this. It's strange now that you speak of it. Your talent in the consciousness and Ling power doesn't seem outstanding, but you are abnormally fast in cultivating the MO skills. It really is weird. Pu Yao was slightly discontent, but still said, you still remember your MO physique? Of course, Jade Metal Head. Ranked 5th in the captain stage, Swa Mo answered. Exactly. At the beginning, I assumed you would go to Star and Moon Wheel. But with such coincidences, you transformed into another kind of MO physique. Pu Yao seemed slightly helpless but also grave. There are 172 types of kernel MO physiques. Ranked first is Mystical Earth, second is Great Day, third is Demonic Fiend Sea. Mystical Earth is not Yin or Yang, and is the only MO physique in kernel-level MO physiques that doesn't belong to either. The biggest reason that it is ranked first is that it can develop into any Brigadier physique, including the top 3 Brigadier physiques. Great Day is Yang and unyielding, filled with brutal power. It is the best for developing any kind of Yang and unyielding MO physique in the future. Demonic Fiend Sea is Yin and deceptive, and the best for transformations. I have the Great Day MO physique. Swa Mo seemed to understand. Right. Pu Yao explained, during the fight with Clear Sky Old Forefather, you coincidentally activated the Big Formation. The Big Formation processed your body, the essence of Golden Crow, Hard Lightning, and Earth Fire. All of those are Yang and unyielding substances. Under these coincidental conditions, it allowed you to develop the Great Day MO physique. When he spoke to there, Pu Yao rolled his eyes. It's just you. If this was another MO that cultivated to Great Day MO physique, he would already have gone to find a Jindan to feed on. Afraid of a Jindan? Humph. Feed? What is strange about that? The inner core of Yaomua are treasures to Shouja, the Jindan of a Shouja is also great food for Yaomua. Pu Yao's vividly red tongue unconsciously licked his lips. You could try. That taste is delicious. Swa Mo shook, and then swore, Pu Yao, you pervert. Pu Yao was not affected. It's you who is too ignorant. It's very normal for Shouja to use Yaomua to forge and in dan making. But you say we're perverts for eating golden cores? Swa Mo was speechless. He decided to not linger on this question. What benefits are there to this great day mo physique? Pu Yao became excited. There are many benefits. Otherwise, how can it match to a Jindan Shouja? The first is in cultivating mo skills. You practiced sky wave fist scripture before, so you must know the crux to fully using the power of this fist scripture is how strong your body is. Mo skills are even more extreme on this point. In the future, you will discover that any mo skill in the end it is to cultivate the body. Great day mo physique is innately strong and powerful. It is easier to cultivate those domineering mo skills. Mo skills again, you don't have mo skills, what are you excited for? Swa mo responded neutrally. Pu Yao almost choked. He decided to ignore Zwa mo, and continued, mo physiques from Colonel and up have many wondrous abilities. Yaoma are not skilled in forging, and really cannot stack up to Shouja on talismans. What do we do to compete then? One method is a soul-tethered talisman, but they are different from the soul-tethered talisman of Shouja. The Yaoma's soul-tethered talisman is a part of their body, like a claw, tooth, or the skin they shed, formed after being forged constantly. The other method is the transformation of the mo physique. Of the kernel mo physiques, each type of mo physique has its own transformations, but there are never more than 6 transformations. The reason that mystical earth, great day, and demonic fiend sea can rank in the top 3 is because all of them possess 6 transformations. Zwa Mo's eyes lit up upon hearing this. What are transformations? Similar to the Abhina of Diana's show. Didn't you get Ling eyes activated? The transformations of a mo physique are techniques that can use the abilities of the mo physique to the greatest degree. You understand the 6 transformations? Swa mo looked at Pu Yao with suspicion. Pu Yao said calmly, no. I just knew. What Sky Yao, you don't understand anything, Swa mo muttered to himself. A vein throbbed in Pu Yao's forehead but he suppressed himself. I might not understand, but someone does. Who? Swa mo was very curious now. That guy, Pu Yao said as he pointed at the gravestone. The gravestone? Swa mo stilled. Right. Smugness imperceptibly flashed across Pu Yao's eyes. You only need to agree to a little request from him, and he will teach you the 6 transformations of the great Daimo physique, and also pass mo skills on to you. Little request. Swa mo instinctively detected danger. He suddenly remembered the ancient voice that sounded when Pu Yao had entered his body. That damned, to abide by my ceremony, to execute my desires, to give my oath, will thou, that had tormented him. The more he thought, the more his anger burned. In the past when GE had been tender, you felt GE was easy to bully, and shit and peed on GE's head, GE couldn't defeat you, so GE tolerated it. Now you want to trick GE. No one could tolerate this. He sprinted in front of the gravestone, and his foot heavily kicked the gravestone. Idiot! You ran into GE's sea of consciousness. Didn't give one piece of Jingshire in rent. Now you scheme against GE. Do you want to live? Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. As Swayamo swore loudly, his foot kicked the gravestone rapidly so much the gravestone wobbled. Seeing Swayamo turn berserk, his eyes bloodshot, Pu Yao was dumbstruck where he stood. He dared to kick him. Heavens! After a long time, Pu Yao finally recovered. When he saw the gravestone that had almost been kicked over, his face instantly turned pale. Just as he opened and said one word, he saw Swayamo stop and turned around. On the dark and vicious face was a pair of bloody and murderous eyes. Pu Yao swallowed. He felt he was being targeted by a wild beast. If he took a wrong step, Swayamo would instantly leap over. His throat felt tight. When his words reached his mouth, they became, let's talk peacefully, let's talk peacefully. Swayamo turned around his pot-black face, and lifted his foot again. Bang bang bang. After kicking viciously for dozens of times, he finally stopped. Before he left, he did not forget to leave words behind. Idiot, let GE tell you. You dare to scheme against GE, GE will kill you. As he finished, he was finally content and left. Pu Yao looked dumbstruck at the gravestone. The black surface of the gravestone was covered in footprints. After a long moment, Pu Yao suddenly exploded in laughter so hard he fell down. Ha 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 ha. This is the person you picked. He has such a personality. Really has a personality. Even more of a personality than you in the past. Ha. How do you feel? It must be great. Ha, I hadn't thought there would be a day when you get kicked by other people. This is so interesting. Ha 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 ha. I like this guy. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao's roaring laughter echoed. When Zuo left the sea of consciousness, his anger had not been completely vented. What great Mo physique, GE doesn't care. Don't think that if you had stuff like Mo skills that you can get good things out of GE. Good doesn't lack spells. Zuo took out a large bunch of jade scrolls from the ring, and arranged them in a row. These jade scrolls had been collected over time while he was in Little Mountain Jia, and were all spells that were unique. The great majority were good 4th grade spells. Among them, there were also 2 5th grade spells. For him, at present, this was enough to use. As to the golden core, it can go to hell. Zuo suddenly had a deep understanding of a rule. Self-reliance was the true path. Back at Wukong Mountain, he was able to break through to the 4th level of the little art of cloud and rain, by relying on the lowest grade jade scroll. Right now, he had this many jade scrolls and their grades were not low. There was no reason that he would deteriorate over time. Deeply stimulated by Pu Yao and the gravestone, Zuo completely sank into a frenzy. Wasn't it just spells? Wasn't it just skills? You think if you hold on to the spells, you hold GE's throat. If the tiger doesn't roar, you mistake it for a sick cat. Gu will let you see why you Sky Yao and old antiques have declined to the point that you couldn't pay the rent, and had to take out the yin beads but couldn't sell them. While GE could hold a place in the outer sect of Wukong's sword sect with just the little art of cloud and rain, everyone calling out little MOGE, and the Jingxia was rolling in. Discovers the difference between Pu Yao and the gravestone. Bit of a lighter chapter and more Pu Yao's Mo interactions, so hopefully people are satisfied. Also, look, no Lil Cliffy. I researched and it turns out people pronounce differently in English depending on geography and other influences. So the A in ague seems like to me because that's how I usually say my A. Some of you might pronounce like AI or so please keep that in mind. Should I stick the ramblings of the past chapters back into the edited chapters? I thought they were distracting between chapters, so I left them out. Do they alleviate the off-putting horror that Pu Yao might seem to be? Chapter 305, Entrance to the Jia River. Of more than 100 jade scrolls, 7/10 were sword scriptures. This made Zuo feel very helpless. Even though he had once cultivated sword essence at Wukong Mountains which had attracted the eye of the sect leader and the others, but that was relying the abilities of Pu Yao to forcibly make gains. His innate talent of practicing the sword was lacking, and he was more skilled with 5-element spells. So when he saw that 70% of the sword scriptures, he really had a headache. However, he had put the words out. If he didn't do something, wouldn't Pu Yao laugh at him? He was determined to get the 2 old codgers to see something new. Zuo resolved himself. Wasn't it just sword scriptures? He lined up the jade scrolls, and read through each one patiently. However, he did not read deeply, but scanned through all of them first. It took him nearly 2 days to finish reading more than 100 jade scrolls. His head was dizzy and his vision was blurry when he finished, but he felt he had learned a lot. Right now, his cultivation was limited, but of the Xianxia of the same age, there were only a rare few as knowledgeable as he was. The spiritual cultivation arts of Yao, the body cultivating Mo skills of Mo, and even though he hadn't seen many high-level spells of Xianxia, but in terms of numbers, it was still very astounding. There were rarely people who would do as he did, and like to read all kinds of spells whether or not he would practice them or not. The best benefit of having a vast knowledge was that he could examine these spells from a higher level. Even those YMO could not cultivate these spells to a deep level, but that did not stop him from finding the main concepts. Of course, understanding was just understanding. Casting these spells required more than just understanding. The spells were of a great variety. It clearly was not realistic to cultivate them one by one. And Pu Yao would completely dismiss these spells. He needed to think of a way to shock this guy. Mo thought for a long time. His face suddenly lit up, he got it. Is boss okay? Xia Shan had a slightly worried expression. Boss' state was not normal. Anyone that had eyes was able to see this. Boss had been in this state for a few days. Without eating and drinking, he sat on the deck as though he had gone insane, occasionally mutter something. In comparison, a Goe that sat silently beside him seemed more like a normal person. Probably, Ma Fan said uncertainly. Yesterday, Boss had suddenly cast an unknown spell. The result was the air in the surroundings had suddenly turned chaotic. They had almost been caught in it. After that, everyone stayed far away from Boss. Only a Goe sat silently beside him. You think that it is easy to make a new spell? Pu Yao fanned the flames from the side. Mo ignored him. Time passed extremely quickly. Without realizing it, a month had passed. Mo still forgot to rest and eat, but he still had nothing to show for his efforts. The Jie River entrance of Sky Water Jie was extremely wide. This place was controlled together by 8 different entities. 100 Flower Alliance was one of them. 100 Flower Alliance entered the path through the flower, its entire sect was composed of female Shou. The sect leader, Su Yu, was extremely adept, and 100 Flower Alliance prospered in her hands. Those that could have a share of the Jie River entrance were all sects with great power. It could be imagined how powerful 100 Flower Alliance was. 100 Flower Alliance had a branch at this place with its own camp. More than 500 people were present. The leader was a Jindan elder called Gao Jianting. It was possible to see how much importance 100 Flower Alliance put on the camp. Gao Jianting was as beautiful as a flower, her begonia sword scripture was at the level of sword essence manifestation. When she attacked, it was a beautiful scene of begonias flying in the sky. The slave transporting boats that went to Little Mountain Jia last time still haven't come back. Is there any other news? Gao Jianting's brow was creased. Shu, no news has come back, a female disciple hurriedly responded. Gao Jianting murmured to herself, did something happen? Just at this time, a female disciple suddenly ran in with panic. Shu, please come out and see this. Gao Jianting's expression changed, and her figure disappeared. In the air, Gao Jiantiang looked at the vast army in front of her, and inhaled sharply. The sky above the Jie River was completely filled with Xianxia without any visible end. Shu, that's our slave transporting boats, a female disciple cried out. Gao Jianting's pupils suddenly shrank. That was right, the 5 big ships at the very center of this large army were the slave transporting boats of 100 Flower Alliance. The other didn't even change the 100 Flower Alliance markings on the slave transporting boats. She was confident that something had happened in Little Mountain Jie. This large procession disturbed all the factions. Sword lights flashed, and large amounts of Xianxia flew into the sky. However, when they saw such a large number of Xianxia, they were dumbstruck where they stood. Heavens! What is going on? The 5 colossal slave-transporting boats slowly flew with a shocking presence like moons buoyed by the stars. Gao Jianting's expression changed. She controlled herself and did not move rashly. Since the other had gotten to this place, Clear Sky Old Forefather had most likely been killed. They were both Jindan, and Gao Jianting knew her own strength was far below Clear Sky Old Forefather. Even more, the troop that was swimming around the slave-transporting boats looked extremely strong from a glance. She was not only one. Every person's gaze was attracted by Vermilion Bird Camp. This troop of no more than 800 people gave them a strong feeling of danger. Elite. Only an elite force that gone through many battles would possess such a dangerous aura. The little mountain Xianxia that had just arrived were exhausted, but all of them were excited. They had finally escaped Little Mountain Jia. However, when they noticed the Xianxia from Sky Water Jia looking warily at them, they instantly quieted down. These fortunate Xianxia that had survived had all gone through blood and fire. Their sensitivity to danger was far higher than Sky Water Jia Xianxia. They unconsciously retreated towards the 5 slave-transporting boats. Even more of them took out their talismans. Silence, an abnormal silence. The situation instantly became tense. The expressions of the Sky Water Jia Xianxia changed. They felt as though there was an invisible cord tightening slowly. Gao Jianting's expression also changed as well. The other side had much higher numbers than they did. If a conflict occurred, this place would flow with blood. Their gazes all turned to the 5 slave-transporting boats. At this time, many people noticed the 100-flower pavilion marks on the slave-transporting boats and looked at Gao Jianting with strange looks. However, when they saw the contorted grimace on Gao Jianting's face, they instantly understood. They all knew what 100-flower pavilion had done in Little Mountain Jia. Looking at it now, 100-flower pavilion probably had not gotten any benefits. However, they were more curious about the 5 slave-transporting boats. From the movements of the Xianxia, it was possible to see the leader of this group of people were on the 5 boats. Gong Sun Cha looked at Zhuo Mo. Shu Long looked at Zhuo Mo. They were waiting for Zhuo Mo's order. The Xianxia in the surroundings all turned to look at Zhuo Mo, waiting for the order from the master of Golden Crow City. When people encountered danger, they were used to looking towards people who could resolve the problem and bring them victory. Zhuo Mo was this kind of person in their hearts. Gao Jianting and the others also noticed the change in people's gazes, and unconsciously looked towards the youth sitting on the deck of the slave-transporting boat at the very front. The enormous Jia River entrance was silent. At the center of everyone's attention, Zhuo Mo didn't feel anything at all. He was arguing furiously with Pu Yao. "This is what you thought of? Ha, nonsense." Pu Yao said scornfully, "I thought you had some ability, but after working for a month, you just have something this far-fetched." "Far-fetched? You old codger that's been dead for 1,000 years, you're just like the gravestone, even your mind has rusted. Of course you guys can't understand something this cutting-edge." Zhuo Mo was not weak as he retaliated. "Don't put me with that guy." Pu Yao raged, "This honored Sky Yao, so what if you're a Sky Yao?" Zhuo Mo said disdainfully as he looked sideways, "Out of time is out of time." Pu Yao smiled and said calmly, "Your idea is unique, but your experience in cultivation is too little. You clearly have underestimated the difficulty in this. If you are in Jindan, you may be able to use this move, but you definitely cannot right now. Something that cannot be used has no value. It's useless because you say so. You really are confident." Zhuo Mo snorted coldly. "If I can do it, what then?" Pu Yao's eye narrowed like a blade, and he said darkly, "You do not need to provoke me. If you can do it, I will help you get the 6 transformations of Great Daimo physique. But if you cannot do it, then you have to agree to the gravestone's oath. You promise?" Zhuo Mo asked as he tilted his head. "Yes." Pu Yao said coldly. All right, I agree. Zuomo nickered, a cunning smile on his face. Pu, you got tricked. Finishing, Zuomo's hands swiped and forming a sword scripture move. A faint blue sword energy appeared in front of him. His hands continuously swiped. A red sword energy and a gold sword energy appeared. His expression was unusually serious. With a light shout, the sword scriptures on his hands turned and his hand motions changes. The three sword energies seemed to change as they were guided by an invisible force. Pu, this is three-talent formation. In front of Zuomo was a three-leaf-shaped sword formation composed of sword energies. The sword formation flowed in motion. For cardinal formation, Zuomo released another sword scripture. This formation changed. 3 talent into 4 cardinal. The nimble presence turned to a heavy one. 5 element formation. Heaven light 7-star sword formation. Gao Jianting stared at the sword formation in front of the youth with shock on her face. With her eyes, she could see that every sword energy the youth released was a beginning one, but the attributes of each sword energy were completely different. If it was just this, that only showed that this boy's knowledge was shamefully heterogeneous, and she wouldn't be so shocked. Yet the youth deliberately merged these sword energies of different attributes into a sword formation. She could not completely understand the sword formation in front of the youth, but there were 36 types of sword energies that were put in. When these normal sword energies formed a sword formation, their power grew. Looking from far away, she could feel threads of cold. This skill was to turn what was rotten into a wonder. Powerful. What were the origins of this youth? She did not notice that the tense atmosphere had dissipated. Everyone's attention were attracted by the sword formation in front of Zuomo. Chapter 306, Spells entering formation. Zuomo's cheeks ballooned, his eyes were round like a toad expanding its cheeks, and blew out heavily. Whoosh! A red thread of fire emerged from his mouth. Countless small flames landed like raindrops in the sword formation. Boom! The light from the sword formation exploded, countless red sparks floating in the middle. Inside the sharp murderous intent was an explosive energy. At the same time, Zuomo's hands flipped and the little art of cloud and rain formed. The glowing rain silently entered the sword formation. Innumerable clear droplets floated inside the formation. The water and fire were clearly divided and extremely pretty to look at. However, no one was attracted by its beauty. The dangerous presence exuded by the water and fire sword formation made everyone's hearts speed up. Pu, look, isn't this it? Zuomo smugly showed off. This was the method he thought of. After Zuomo had read through more than 100 jade scrolls, he found that while the quality of each was good, there wasn't a spell that made piqued his interest. At this moment, he suddenly found that he had become pickier without previously noticing it. However, he suddenly discovered that even though these spells and sword scriptures were not outstanding, they were at least varied. Each jade scroll had its own unique qualities. He had a daring idea. Could he merge all of these spells together? Consequently, he thought of formations. Different sword energies and spells contained an abundance of changes, and thus they were perfect for formations. It was extremely difficult to use different sword energies and spells to create a formation. When this idea jumped out, he knew it was possible. However, he didn't speak of it. He really desired the 6 transformations of the great Daimo physique from the bottom of his heart, especially when he heard Pu Yao say that it could match a Jindan Shouja. He forcibly stopped the impulse to make a deal, and spent a whole month to sort through every detail that he could think of before he set the trap for Pu Yao. Zuomo's face was very smug, but his heart was beating rapidly inside. Only when he finished setting up the formation did the stone in his heart land on the ground. Dearie, he should not frequently do things like this in the future, that was too intense for GE. How is it possible?" When Zuemo saw Pu Yao's dumbstruck expression, all of the nervousness flew away, and his body felt unspeakably comfortable. Divine summoning art. Pu Yao's eyes widened greatly as he stared in disbelief at Zuemo. Divine summoning art. What is that? Zuemo was confused. Pu Yao had a death stare locked on Zuemo. His gaze was so strange that Zuemo felt his hairs stand up. I have no interest in Yao." Pu Yao's eyes were tightly fixed on Zuemo and he did not speak. After a while, Zuemo really could not suppress himself. "Pu, you can't go back on your word." His finger motions instantly changed. "Look, I used bright light spell as the foundation, then black fire spell, and ling wood spell, so that the wood element would create fire. Then I used the black days spell as the connection to create the presence of the fire-tailed tiger, which is highly offensive and vicious." In front of him, a formation that seemed like a ferocious tiger took form. A thread of fire tail was waving in the air, cold and murderous. Gao Jianting, who saw this, couldn't stop herself from inhaling sharply. With a few flicks of the youth's finger, all kinds of spells fell like rain, and the formation took form almost in the blink of an eye. What finger method was this? With her cultivation and keen eyes, she could clearly see every step Zuemo made, but when all the movements were connected together, she could not understand it. However, the high-spirited and vicious presence of this fire-tailed tiger formation rushed at her face. She had never heard of such a fantastical method. In her eyes, the youth sitting on the boat suddenly became deep and mysterious. Was it the disciple of some big sect out on a rite of passage? This was her only rational guess. The highest-ranking commanders of the other factions also had heavy expression at this time. Zuomo's move really was astounding and exquisite, stunning the entire place. Even though they didn't know why this youth would show this to everyone, but the factions couldn't help but start to mutter. "Why do you know divine summoning art?" Pu Yao stared at Zuemo and bit out his words one by one. "What is divine summoning art?" Zuemo asked curiously. Pu Yao stared at Zuemo for a long time before opening. "Then how are you controlling these spells?" "Spiritual power." Zuemo looked strangely at Pu Yao. "Of course it is spiritual power. This is very easy. Look." He flicked with a finger and a thread of fire flew before him. Without any visible action from him, the thread of fire seemed to be pulled by an invisible force to spin around Zuemo. "You don't know how?" Zuemo felt it was even more strange. "No way. Shouldn't a finger method as easy as this be something that all Yao cultivate? How many threads can you control in total?" Pu Yao did not answer but asked in response. "A lot." Without another word, Zuomo's finger flicked continuously. Threads of fire floated in the air. In a short moment, more than 100 flames were floating around him. Zuomo's consciousness moved, and controlled these flames to perform all kinds of moves. "All right. I will give you the 6 transformations to the Great Daimo physique tomorrow," Pu Yao said decisively. Zuemo instantly had a smile. Pu Yao might have the track record of a con artist, but when he promised something he never went back on his word. "You should first resolve what is happening right now," Pu Yao then said. Zuemo stilled. Pu Yao's tone actually became slightly friendly. This made feel very unaccustomed. Illusion, this definitely was an illusion. As he warned himself not to forget, he started to examine what was in front of him. When he looked, his body shook. What situation was this? The surroundings were deathly silent and every person was looking at him. Even if the skin on Zuomo's face was thick, he still felt his scalp prickle. Had he been embarrassing himself in front of so many people just now? It was over. He wailed inside. However, the skin on his face was truly thick, and he quickly composed himself. Zuemo calmly asked, What's going on?" When Xie Shan, Ma Fan, and the others heard this, they almost dropped from the sky. They stared at each other. Boss had made such a fuss, and now he was asking them what was happening. Gong Sun Cha's expression did not change. He coughed lightly, and said to Zhong Ru beside him, "Oh, the wind outside is strong, I'm going in to rest." He then left for the cabin. Zhong Ru reached out a hand in bewilderment. There was no wind. Seeing no one answer after a while, anger sprouted from Zhuo Mo's embarrassment. He pointed at Ma Fan, "You, speak." Ma Fan felt very unlucky. He could hear the muffled laughs of Xie Shan, Lei Peng and the others beside him, but he forced himself to fly next to Zhuo Mo. "Boss, look," he pointed at the sky water Jia Xiuzha in the sky. Zhuo Mo followed Ma Fan's finger and gazed at the sky water Jia Xiuzha opposite them. After tilting his head and thinking for a while, he said, "They are not letting us go across." When these words came out, all the little mountain Jia Xiuzha uncontrollably tightened their grip on their talismans, their gazes became vicious. Gao Jianting and the others had extraordinary hearing. When they heard Zhuo Mo's words, their hearts jumped suddenly. If they had been just wary of the number of the little mountain Jia Xiuzha before, after seeing Zhuo Mo's uncanny formation, they were even more wary of his origins. The instinctive movements of the other Xiuzha subordinates made their hearts tighten when they saw it. They knew that it was not good, but if they spoke and showed weakness now, they felt they would lose face. At this time, Rong Wei inserted, "City Master, don't be angry. Everyone must not have known that City Master and your procession would be arriving, and have overreacted. City Master, please allow this one to go forward to speak." Rong Wei was very nervous. She had seen the Battle of Golden Crow City. Zhuo Mo didn't even respect Clear Sky Old Forefather. If these people infuriated him, this place would flow with blood today. Having managed to escape from Little Mountain Jia after a struggle, Zhuo Mo was slightly discontent at being blockaded at the Sky Water Jia entrance. He had led this group of people and survived for so long in Little Mountain Jia, and a killing energy had settled on his body. However, he didn't want to enter a conflict with the local factions just as he entered Sky Water Jia. He said to Rong Wei, "Then we will trouble Miss Rong." Rong Wei hurriedly flew towards the people of Sky Water Jia. Normal Xiuzha might not know of Rong Wei of the House of the Crow Marquis, but the leaders of the 8 factions recognized her. After Rong Wei went over and quietly spoke with them, the Sky Water Jia Xiuzha in front of Zhuo Mo retreated. Zhuo Mo was slightly shocked. It seemed this House of the Crow Marquis wasn't simple. Thinking about how the House of the Crow Marquis was investigating the stars in daytime, Zhuo Mo was very irritated. It wasn't a good feeling that he was being targeted by a force that had a powerful background. Rong Wei came back and smiled. "It is done." Zhuo Mo had to give his thanks again. The 5 slave transporting boats slowly started and took the vast group of Xiuhe into Sky Water Jia. Gao Jianting gazed at this enormous troop, worry rising in her heart. She could only hope now that these 5 slave transporting boats were not spoils of war from a direct conflict. No, she had to report this to the sect leader immediately. She didn't dare to procrastinate and took out a paper crane. After she finished writing, she channeled Ling power into the crane and watched as it disappeared into the sky. At the same time, hundreds of paper cranes flew into the sky and disappeared. As they entered Sky Water Jia, Zhuo Mo's emotions totally relaxed. At evening, they reached the first major city of Sky Water Jia, Guangheng City. When such a large number of Xiuzha appeared in the horizon, they created terror in the local Xiuzha. Fortunately, Rong Wei came out at the appropriate time to comfort them, and dissipate their panic. Seeing the situation, Zhuo Mo established camp at a mountain peak outside the city. There were no gatherings in the world that did not end. Many Xiuzha came at this time to Zhuo Mo to give their farewells. Zhuo Mo did not urge them to remain and gave them his good wishes. The sky filled with sword lights like rain that disappeared into the sky. Their individual power was undoubted after being able to survive in Little Mountain Jia. They would have good lives in Sky Water Jia. After some thought, Suemo gathered everyone together, and took the Jinji off their bodies. He looked with emotion at them, and suddenly felt a bit proud. Truthfully, I had no choice but to put Jinji in everyone in the past. Fortunately, we have escaped Little Mountain Jia. Starting from today, everyone is free, you can go wherever you want. Everyone can go get 5 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi from Old Bao. The people shifted slightly, but all of them were silent. No one moved. Suemo saw that no one moved, and felt irritated. He waved his hand. I'm letting you go, so go. Finishing, he turned and left. It was night, and the moonlight was like water. Chapter 307, Bright Water City. Suemo sat on top of a rock at the top of the mountain. The moon was shining above his head, and a Gui was sitting silently beside him. Gongsun Cha found Suemo. Seeing him, he could only smile. What are you smiling about? Suemo said irritably, and then asked, where's Qing Shidi? He's still experimenting with his Ling beasts. According to him, he's at a critical time period. Gongsun Cha found a rock beside Suemo and sat down. He stretched lazily. I can finally rest. In Little Mountain Jia, I didn't have one night of peaceful rest. I had thought that a battle maniac like you wouldn't need to rest. Suemo glanced at him and mocked. Oh, that's because I was just starting. Gongsun Cha gave a shy smile. Suemo acted as though he was going to puke. Why are you letting them leave? Gongsun Cha's tone became serious. Suemo rolled his eyes. I can't support them. Do you know how great the pressure it is to feed all these people? Oh, in Little Mountain Jia, we can steal resources, but that doesn't work anywhere else. Those not in charge of the household do not know how expensive food is. To say of nothing else, you know how much Vermilion Bird Camp uses every day. In any case, we have all fought together, it's better to have a good farewell. Gongsun Cha was the one that knew the most about the expenses of Vermilion Bird Camp. It definitely was not realistic to keep everyone. Sky Water Jia was much more wealthy and prosperous than Little Mountain Jia, but its territories had already been divided up. If they wanted to insert themselves, they would have to act against other factions. Gongsun Cha did not fear fighting, but this way, they would easily become the common enemy of the entire Sky Water Jia. That would not be good. A lot of people would probably go. Gongsun Cha smacked his lips as he said, people's hearts have started to change as they arrived in Sky Water Jia. This is also good, Suemo said. The two became silent. After a while, Gongsun Cha looked at Suemo, and then at a Gui who was sitting woodenly. He asked, where do we go next? And, don't say something like it's dangerous, and you will go alone. Suemo's heart warmed and said, I need to find Water Cloud Embryo. Water Cloud Embryo? Gongsun Cha looked at a Gui. For a Gui. N. Suemo nodded, I don't know what connection I have with a Gui, but since she became like this to save me, I cannot just sit back and do nothing. That's for sure. Gongsun Cha had an expression of agreement and then raised his arms, shouting exuberantly, for a Gui. We will find Cloud Water Embryo. Suemo was very moved and a smile appeared on his face. The best is if we can encounter more fighting. It makes me excited just thinking about it. Gongsun Cha said calmly. As expected from a battle maniac. Oh, where are we going to find Water Cloud Embryo? Can we buy it? Gongsun Cha asked. Don't know. Suemo shook his head. He looked at a Gui and said, we have to investigate. His heart suddenly moved and took out the sound tablet from his ring. Gong Sun Cha's gaze was attracted and he was very shocked. Xixiang has kept this with you. It's been so long since I listened to it. Yes, it's been a long time since we listened. Suemo channeled Ling power into the sound tablet. The calm voice floated out from the sound tablet and was unspeakably intimate. Under the moonlight, Suemo and Gong Sun Cha idly listened to the sound tablet, a Gui sitting silently beside them. The morning of the next day. Yesterday night was fated to be a difficult one for many people. The eyes of many people were bloodshot, some of them had heavy expressions. The number of people in the camp had been dramatically reduced. Gong Sun Cha's expression was very relaxed. No one from Vermilion Bird Camp had left. The people that left were mostly from the eastern and western camps. Of more than 2,000 people, less than 800 remained. I can fill Vermilion Bird Camp now, Gong Sun Cha said with a smile. Vermilion Bird Camp did not leave and Guard Camp did not leave. The departure of the majority of the eastern and western camp was not out of Suemo's expectations. What surprised him was the forging division. None of the Xiuzha from the forging division had left. Suemo looked at the pairs of eyes below him and was very moved. He opened his mouth, but when the words reached his lips, he didn't know what to say. What are you all standing here for? Go back to work. Suemo's shout made everyone roar with laughter. The sorrow due the departures had dissipated greatly. Rong Wei saw this scene and her heart shook. She increasingly felt that she could not clearly understand the master of Golden Crow City. Yesterday, she had been very shocked when she heard the master of Golden Crow City was letting people leave. How could there be someone that would willingly weaken themselves? But today, when she saw the determined looks of the Xiuzha from Golden Crow City, she seemed to understand. This troop in front of her was more unified and had stronger morale than the previous group. Even if they encountered greater dangers, they wouldn't easily break up. The master of Golden Crow City appeared to have weakened his power, but in reality, his primary strength had not been damaged, the organization had become purer, and the average strength had actually went up a level, and had gained strong abilities of survival. Looking at that outrageously young face, Rong Wei felt it was almost impossible to believe. At a glance, Suemo did not have any outstanding qualities. But the actions this youth took frequently displayed a maturity that surpassed his age. She suddenly realized that even if the master of Golden Crow City did not have that mysterious and powerful sect behind him, he would not be one of the masses with his abilities. Just as she was thinking, Suemo suddenly turned around to face her. Miss Rong, where is the biggest city of Sky Water Jie? Rong Wei gathered her thoughts and said with a slight smile, there are 28 primary towns in Sky Water Jie. The most prosperous would be Bright Water City. Does City Master have any plans? Oh, I have a batch of items I want to sell, and buy items along the way. If that's the case, Bright Water City is perfect. The biggest merchants in Sky Water Jie are all in Bright Water City. Rong Wei then said with a smile, this one's house is located in Bright Water City, and have relationships with those merchants, we may be able to help. Suemo hurried to give him thanks. Many thanks, Miss Rong. Suyu finished reading the paper crane that Gao Jianting had sent, and a shadow flashed through her eyes. Suyu was very charismatic and attractive. She was still the most attractive woman even among the multitude of beautiful women in Hundred Flower Alliance. She had managed Hundred Flower Alliance for 20 years and had good relationships with all the sections. The disciples under her had mostly married the accomplished disciples from big sects, and she had a deep foundation. Let's not rashly move on this matter. Suyu said deeply, see what their origins really are. Yes, the female disciple respectfully responded. Where are they now? They reached the border of the city last night. The female disciple crisply answered, it was Miss Rong Wei that brought them over. Oh. Suyu was slightly surprised and then had an expression of deep thought. She could not see what connection Roan Wei had with this master of Golden Crow City. The house of the Crow Marquis was as deep as the sea, and hard for outsiders to probe. But Hundred Flower Alliance had countless eyes, and were the most skilled at spying. Su Yu could see a hint. Of all the factions in Bright Water City, the one Su Yu was wary of the most was the House of the Crow Marquis. The House of the Crow Marquis was usually low-key and did not attend to outside matters. The Crow Marquis himself only focused on cultivation. However, all the hints showed that there was a deep background behind the Crow Marquis. Su Yu had detected this a long time ago, but after all these years, no matter how they searched, they still did not find anything. Roan Wei's trip this time was the biggest action the House of the Crow Marquis took in years. Su Yu smelt an unusual flavor from this. When they saw Bright Water City, Zhuo Mo and the Shitty were slightly shocked. Bright Water City was tens of times bigger than Dongfu. The entire sky was covered in lights that streamed without end. In the sky above the city floated hundreds of islands of various sizes. The houses constructed on the lucky clouds were multicolored from the lights of all kinds of jinji and formations. Sky Water Jia was more prosperous than Sky Moon Jia as expected. The other people were alright, but the trio of Zhuo Mo, Gong Sun Cha, and Chun Yucheng were people that were inexperienced. Each of them gaped, their faces filled with shock. Roan Wei, who had been constantly observing them, felt slightly confused. These three's actions did not seem like those that came from large sections. However, she was not suspicious. Many disciples from large sect never asked about worldly affairs so they could concentrate on cultivation. Some people would never even leave the sect's mountain for decades. She didn't show any signs of scorn and enthusiastically showed them around. Bright Water City is the best part of Sky Water Jia. Almost 4/10 of this Jia's Ling veins are located here, and there are the most secret paradises here. If City Master wants to develop here, you could buy a few secret paradises. They are the best for cultivating. Secret paradises did not hold any attraction for Zhuo Mo. His Mo physique could automatically absorb Ling power from the world and it could process the impurities. He did not need a secret paradise. The other people also lacked interest in the secret paradises. Roan Wei was even more certain now that the master of Golden Crow City came from a large sect. For normal Xiozha, secret paradises were their biggest love as well as their greatest wish. Many Xiozha worked their whole lives with the goal of owning a secret paradise. Only disciples from large sects did not need to worry about secret paradises. Zhuo Mo's procession could truly be called vast. They had camped at an empty area outside the city. What made Zhuo Mo depressed was that the empty area outside the city was owned. It had taken Roan Wei coming forward to get the matter settled. Xu Long and the others did not have any interest in touring the city. Having recovered his youth, Xu Long's mania on cultivation was enough to make Zhuo Mo sweat. With him as the role model, everyone in guard camp had become cultivation maniacs. The people of the forging division also stayed at the camp with only Sun Bao and Ji Wei coming along. Other than that, Bao Yi was a person that could not be left behind. Considering that they should not be high-key, Gong Sun Cha still took along 3 divisions, Sky Peak Platoon among them. Even so, this procession was very eye-catching. The killing aura of Vermilion Bird Camp that had been forged through combat was completely different than normal guards. Landing in the eyes of those who understood, they couldn't stop themselves from speculating. Fortunately, Roan Wei knew many people in Bright Water City and people would occasionally come up to exchange greetings. Roan Wei's mind suddenly moved and when she raised her head, a paper crane flew over. The paper crane landed on her palm. She lightly unfolded it. When she finished reading, there was a surprised expression. The Marquis was not in the compound. The compound guard she had sent back to the compound informed her that the Marquis had left half a month ago and had not yet returned. Roan Wei felt slight regret. She had wanted to take the master of Golden Crow City to meet the Marquis. The Marquis was very knowledgeable and might have been able to see his origins. It seemed like she could not do it. She was worried about the affairs of the house and bowed in apology to Zhuemo, my sincere apologies. Rong Wei did not know that the Marquis had left a fortnight ago, and has not yet returned. There are many affairs in the compound. Rong Wei will bid farewell early. City Master, please give your forgiveness. Hearing this, Zhuemo hurriedly said, Miss Rong has helped us greatly. We are very grateful, you should hurry. We will just walk around by ourselves. Worried about the internal situation of the house, Rong Wei left. The procession of people hadn't walked around for long when Zhuemo's expression changed and suddenly stopped walking. Someone was following them. Chapter 308, Brute. Zhuemo gave everyone a look. They all understood and purposely walked towards a less populated area. Is there a reason Sir is following us? Zhuemo looked coldly at this Xianxia wearing almond-yellow Taoist robes, with white hair yet had a childlike appearance. There were still many people passing by. When these Xianxia saw the yellow-robed old Taoist, they all changed expression and hurriedly left. Little baby is pretty clever to have noticed old forefather. This old person's tone was very proud. Facing Zhuemo's procession, he showed no fear. The 3 divisions of Vermilion Bird Camp silently prepared to fight and could attack at any moment. I urge you to not move. The yellow-robed old Taoist snickered. Otherwise, this old forefather would make you feel it. Zhuemo rolled his eyes. Why did everyone speak so much these days? However, Zhuemo didn't want to make trouble right after arriving in Brightwater City. He glanced at the yellow-robed old Taoist. Sir has followed us for this long, it shouldn't just be to chat, right? Little baby, you have a talisman. Since you can't use it, why don't you give it to this old forefather, the yellow-robed old Taoist said cheerfully. Zhuemo was slightly surprised. He said, Talisman. I have many talismans. Which one is Sir speaking of? You have a pile of scrap metal. There's only one that can be considered a talisman, it should be a 6th-grade talisman. The yellow-robed old Taoist narrowed his eyes that twinkled with greed. 6th-grade talisman. Zhuemo's heart shook. The number of people that knew the 9-turn sky soil disc had landed in his possession was pitifully few. How could this old Taoist know? Sir is joking. A 6th-grade talisman isn't something someone like this one can possess. Zhuemo refuted. Don't pretend in front of this old forefather. The expression of the yellow-robed old Taoist turned cold and he seemed impatient. Old forefather doesn't want to hear you blab. If you are wise, hand it over. Old forefather naturally won't forget to give you something in return. Sir means. Zhuemo said lightly, his eyes turning cold. Don't think that old forefather doesn't dare to attack you because you glued yourselves onto the house of the Crow Marquis. Even if the Crow Marquis personally comes, he can't save you. The presence of the yellow-robed old Taoist suddenly grew. The Ling power in the surroundings seemed to become chaotic and become abnormally restless. The faces of Zhuemo and the others changed dramatically. Jin Dan. This yellow-robed old Taoist was actually a Jin Dan. Be wise, and take it out. Don't make old forefather personally act. It won't look good then, the yellow-robed Taoist said darkly. The strong Ling pressure was like lead that pressed down on them to the point of suffocation. Zhuemo and the others had never directly faced a Jindan at such a close distance. Their battle against Clear Sky Old Forefather had been in the air. The feeling now was completely different. In their eyes, the figure of the yellow-robed old Taoist was as high as a mountain. They were as small as insects, and unable to shake him. At such a close distance to a Jindan, just this terrifying Ling pressure was enough for the great majority of Ningmai to lose their will to resist. I hadn't noticed that you do have some talent. A flash of shock passed through the eyes of the yellow-robed old Taoist, and then he snickered. Pity that it isn't enough in front of old forefather. A light flashed through the eyes of the yellow-robed old Taoist. Everyone suddenly felt their body be pulled down and could not move. They couldn't even raise their arms. Everyone had shocked expressions. Power of the earth. Zhuemo glared angrily, but his body didn't move at all. He finally knew why the other wanted the 9-turn sky soil disc. The other cultivated earth element spells. What earth element spell was so tyrannical? Xianxia gave a muffled grunt and forcibly channeled his Ling power to activate his sword scripture. Somewhat interesting. It seems you are almost at Jindan. The yellow-robed old Taoist had a surprised expression again. However, he then was unconcerned. It's a pity that your luck isn't good. Pew. Xianxia felt the Ling power in his chest reverse. He couldn't not stop himself from spraying up a mouthful of blood. Don't struggle. The yellow-robed old Taoist looked scornfully at Xianxia. It is useless. There is just one line between us, but this one line is the difference between heaven and earth. Finishing, he ignored Xianxia and turned to walk towards Zhuemo. Why did you have to force old forefather to act? The yellow-robed old Taoist smiled smugly and casually walked in front of Zhuemo and slapped Zhuemo's face. He roared with laughter. Old forefather's luck today is really good, many thanks to you. The Shilja of Vermilion Bird Camp all glared angrily, furiously channeling their Ling power to struggle. They are pretty loyal to you. The yellow-robed old Taoist snickered and continued to slap Zhuemo's face. But so what? Ha ha. Zhuemo bore the pain and asked through his teeth, how did you know I have this talisman? The yellow-robed old Taoist was very proud. I'll teach you a lesson. 6th grade talismans have cognition, and old forefather knows a spell to find cognition. He examined Zhuemo from head to toe. At the end, his eyes landed on the rings on Zhuemo's hand. His eyes suddenly lit up, and he laughed loudly. Old forefather is getting a tidy sum today. So many dimensional rings. As he spoke, he reached out to grab at a ring on Zhuemo's finger. Just as his finger touched Zhuemo's finger, a change suddenly happened. This motionless hand that was wearing several dimensional rings flipped upwards without a warning, and grabbed his hand. The expression of the yellow-robed old Taoist suddenly changed. A terrifying force passed from his hand. He could not control his body and was slammed towards the other. Not good. The yellow-robed old Taoist reacted quickly. He was just going to activate his Ling shield when his eyes suddenly bulged, his figure felt numb, and curled upwards. A punch that could break rock slammed into his abdomen. Zhuemo's features were twisted. Half of his face was still red as he bellowed, Gu has had to bear with you for a long time already. Bang! The body of the yellow-robed old Taoist shook. The enormous force caused his entire face to deform. After practicing Vajra Profound Sutra, Zhuemo's strength had increased greatly. The present strength of Zhuemo, who had a great Daimo physique, had reached a terrifying level. The flesh of Mo were all extremely strong, and how could great Daimo physique, which ranked second of all Brigadier Mo physiques, lack in this regard? It wasn't lacking, and was stronger, much stronger than Zhuemo had imagined. When his body had been restricted earlier, he had held some power back. He had personally experienced the restrictive abilities of the 9-turn Sky-Earth disc, and therefore didn't panic. The power of the great Daimo physique was much stronger than the time he had been trapped by the 9-turn Sky-Soil disc. But no one else in his group had the same terrifying strength he did. As a single person, he definitely could not defeat the other. Zhuemo could only feign weakness to bait the enemy. At this time, he felt satisfaction. He had never felt that his fists were so filled with power, each punch seemed to vent the anger inside of him into the body of the yellow-robed old Taoist. Old forefather. Ha, don't you know Ge already killed an old forefather? Bang! Dare to steal Ge's treasures. Do you want to live? Bang! Dare to slap Ge's face. You're finished. Bang bang bang. Zhuemo handed out more than 10 punches, each one landing on flesh. When a wallop landed on the body of the yellow-robed old Taoist, it was possible to see his body shake, and his flesh ripple. Zhuemo hadn't vented his anger yet. Holding the neck of the yellow-robed old Taoist, he threw the other onto the ground like throwing down a bag of sand. Hiss. Simultaneous inhales came from the surroundings, including Xia Shan, who was injured and also looked with abject shock at boss who had totally gone berserk. Boom boom boom. The stone tiles on the ground cracked, stone flying with every blow. Pia, the Ling armor of the yellow-robed old Taoist, couldn't tolerate such brutal strikes and shattered. Zhuemo's hand paused. The Ling armor of a Jindan should be worth a lot of Jinshe. His heart suddenly started to hurt. He suddenly became furious, and continued to slam the yellow-robed old Taoist into the ground a dozen more times before he stopped. He raised his head with satisfaction, one hand holding the neck of the yellow-robed old Taoist, and turned to face the other people. Are you guys okay? Whoosh, everyone simultaneous stepped back. There wasn't any anger left in their eyes. They looked with sympathy at the yellow-robed old Taoist that was being held by the neck by Zhuemo like a rabid dog. The pitiful yellow-robed old Taoist was not shaped like a person anymore. He was completely swollen from the beating and was unconscious. Pitiful, so pitiful. They had never seen such a pitiful Jindan, one that had been punched to the point of being misshapen. They should never offend boss. Even a rough man like Lei Peng was pale with fright like a little girl, his heart shaking rapidly. Zhong Ru, who had once taught boss fist scriptures, had an ashen face. He dared to guarantee that he had not taught this. What was wild? What was brutish? What was savage? In comparison to using brute force to hit a Jindan to the point of unconsciousness, becoming misshapen due to swelling of the entire body and leaving compound fractures. We are Xiuzhe, we specialize in techniques and Ling. So when boss turned with a reddened face, his face ferocious as he panted, they all retreated a few steps. Zhuemo glanced at the yellow-robed old Taoist that he was holding, and felt very good inside. He finally caught a Jindan this time. He had promised to give Pu Yao a golden core. He hadn't expected that he would encounter such a stupid Jindan today. At this time, he completely forgot how he was completely suppressed before. Back to the camp. He waved his hand grandly and flew at the front. Far from where they were, Su Yu's face was slightly pale. It was the first time she had seen such a savage and brutish person. When she had seen the yellow-robed old Taoist go to make trouble for Zhuemo, she had taken note. She wanted to see just how powerful this group was, but there was much to be wary of. The appearance of the yellow-robed old Taoist was a great opportunity. She recognized the yellow-robed Taoist. This person was vicious and cruel and had killed many people. Even other Jindan Xiuzhe were wary of him. The beginning of the incident did not deviate from her imagination. Anyone that had a bit of common knowledge knew the difference between Jindan and Ningmai. She even felt that Zhuemo wouldn't dare to rebel, and obediently give up the talismans. When the yellow-robed Taoist had activated his spell, she had secretly shaken her head inside. This master of Golden Crow City really wasn't a smart person. But the scene immediately after struck her dumb. The master of Golden Crow City had suddenly moved and grabbed the yellow-robed old Taoist. Without using any Ling power, definitely without any Ling power like a street-roaming gangster, he had beat down a Jindan with his fists. But The fist that had no Ling power actually had beaten the yellow-robed old Taoist to the point of being misshapen. Was he a body cultivating Xianxia? What stage had he cultivated to in order to be able to beat a Jindan Xianxia to this state? The simple and rough barrage from the master of Golden Crow City made her pale and uncontrollably feel a thread of fear. This was a true brute. Chapter 309, The Greatest Gain. At the camp. Can't you go faster? Pu Yao impatiently urged from behind him. What are you rushing for? Let me see if I missed anything. Zhuemo searched the body of the old Taoist one more time in great detail, to prevent anything from being left behind, before reluctantly throwing the old Taoist to Pu Yao. Pu Yao hurriedly turned into a black wind that took up the old Taoist and disappeared. So pitiful. Zhuemo shook his head in sympathy, but when his eyes returned to his spoils, his face instantly filled with smiles. Fighting against a Jindan was a painful process, but inventorying the spoils was the best experience. Whoa! There wasn't much on the body of the old Taoist, but to be seen to have value in the eyes of a Jindan, those items naturally were not ordinary. A string of mother and child copper bells, a blue stone about the size of his palm shaped like a mountain, and 3 jade scrolls. Zhuemo first took out the mother and child bells. The big and small yellow copper bells were strung together with a red string. Zhuemo found it interesting and swung the copper bell. Dong! Zhuemo seemed to be hit full-on by a wild beast. Before he could react, he was thrown back multiple zhang. After a while, Zhuemo shook his head as he climbed up and spat out the sand in his mouth. His eyes were bright as he stared at the bells on the ground. Such a powerful talisman. If he did not possess the great Daimo physique, he probably would have died right there. It was the first time he saw such a strange sound-type talisman. Most sound-type talismans enchanted the mind, and those that were stronger could directly attack the soul. These mother and child bells could physically attack. Strange. It was too strange. Zhuemo carefully picked up the mother and child bells, his consciousness prying into it. The best way to understand a talisman was to use the consciousness to inspect it. When his consciousness entered the copper bells, Zhuemo felt his vision shift and was situated in an empty space. Countless complex and ancient seal scripts swam around him. They seemed to be alive as they spun freely. Even if Zhuemo could be considered to be knowledgeable, his head was dizzy when he saw these seal scripts. Not far from Zhuemo was a round ball about the height of a person. It was made from dense layers of complex seal scripts wrapped together. That was a jinji. How many jinji had people put down over the big ball? Staring at the round ball covered in jinji, Zhuemo suddenly became curious what was being contained inside this round ball. Was the thing inside this round ball of jinji perhaps the crux to controlling these bells? How had the enormous force that had thrown him back been released? These seal scripts? Or what was contained inside? He was a bit uncertain, but he didn't dare to move rashly now. The seal scripts flying in the surroundings were outside of his knowledge of the field. If he accidentally became trapped, he was not certain that he could escape. Withdrawing his consciousness from the copper bells, Zhuemo still felt fear. He couldn't make a good judgment about the grade of this talisman, but it definitely was above 5th grade. His intuition told him that it was very dangerous. Out of caution, Zhuemo decided to temporarily put it aside. The old Taoist that he had defeated probably hadn't understood how to use it either. Zhuemo's attention then landed on the mountain-shaped blue rock. When he held it, he was very shocked. It was very heavy. This rock that was the size of his palm weighed a terrifying 2,000 caddies. Zhuemo instantly became excited. This was another powerful talisman. He couldn't help but examine it. Countless seal characters could be seen on the surface of the mountain. They were as thin as strands of hair, and displayed the extraordinary skill of the forger. Zhuemo channeled Ling power into it. On the surface of the blue rock were the words, "Evil subduing," in bright cinnabar. The small mountain quickly grew to a height of 5 zhang. Zhuomo's mind moved, his finger pointing upward as he shouted, "Seal!" The mountain suddenly appeared at the location that Zhuomo's finger was pointing to and slammed down. Boom! The earth shook, and Zhuemo was almost knocked down. The strong air wave carried the dust as it swept past like a twister. The entire camp was alarmed by such a loud noise, and many figures flew towards this place. When everyone saw this blue mountain that was half buried in the ground and the spider web-like cracks radiating outwards, they shouted in shock and were dumbstruck where they stood. "Ichem, you can all go. Go. I'm trying out new talismans." Zhuemo sent everyone away, ran to the little mountain and stared with intoxication at the cinnabar red words, "Evil subduing," written on the surface. Good treasure, very good treasure. If this dropped down and hit, even a Jindan Xianxia would be turned into a pancake. Even if it just brushed past, that would result in a broken limb at least. This evil subduing peak was a 5th grade talisman and Zhuemo could not stop caressing it. 5th grade talismans had to have formation techniques. If it was this powerful when used normally, he didn't know what the formation technique would look like. He still put the evil subduing peak back into the ring. The investigation of the formation technique wouldn't be easy and would take a long time. After 2 great talismans, Zhuomo's curiosity had been stirred to a peak. He was full of anticipation towards the 3 jade scrolls that remained. Taking out the jade scrolls, he read through them one by one. The first jade scroll recorded the spell that the yellow-robed old Taoist had cultivated, Heavy Earth Spell. It was a rare 6th grade earth element spell. This was astounding to Zhuemo. Higher-level spells belonging to the 5 element were very rare in the Kunlun realm, as it was dominated by Sword Xiu. He quickly found the move that the yellow-robed old Taoist had used in Brightwater City. It was called, Heavy Earth Restriction. In an instant, it could manipulate the earth element power under the ground and to produce a restrictive effect. Other than this, it had many other abilities that made Zhuemo afraid as he read. If the other had not been careless today, and been trapped in close combat, it was hard to say who would win. Jindan Xianxia that were skilled in 5-element spells were completely different than Jindan Sword Xiu. Even though their attacks were not as powerful as Sword Xiu, but their moves had more variation. Zhuemo decided that he had to practice the Heavy Earth spell. His talent in the 5 elements wasn't just a bit stronger than his talent in the sword. The second jade scroll made Zhuomo's mind jump again. It recorded the imprinting and usage instructions for the evil subduing peak. Zhuemo was entranced as he read and was extremely joyful. This evil subduing peak was made from 130,000 caddies of 3rd grade sky blue rock, and was processed hundreds of times to remove the impurities before finally being reduced to 10,000 caddies of the essence. The Jade Scroll also recorded the formation techniques of the evil subduing peak. The description was so strong that Zhuomo's heart itched. Evil subduing peak was a talisman like the Heaven-Turned Seal. These types of talismans usually were powerful, but had all kinds of weaknesses. For example, this evil subduing peak had to be held in the hand of the Xianxia to be used. But it was a terrifying 10,000 caddies heavy. Even if it was not activated, it was still 2,000 caddies heavy. Those that had weak bodies did not have the power to use it. The yellow-robed old Taoist had possessed this evil subduing peak for a long time, but due to this restriction, he could only leave it in the corner of his ring. But this was perfect for Zhuemo. His great Damo physique was very strong. Not to mention just 2,000 caddies, even if it was the full 10,000 caddies, he could hold it up. If he also practiced the Heavy Earth spell, and used the two together, the power would further multiply. The Jade Scroll also recorded how to process it further. Xuemo swept over it and put it back into the ring to start reading the last jade scroll. The last jade scroll was a Jia map. This Jia map was bigger than the one Xuemo had copied from Romewei. This shocked Xuemo. He guessed that the yellow-robed old Taoist had gotten this Jia map from somewhere else and this was not charted by himself. There were more than 500 Jia marked on the Jia map, including some Jia that were in very far-away locations. Xuemo seemed to be able to trace the trips the maker of this Jia map had taken through his life. Many of the routes penetrated deep into obscure places. The information written about each Jia were also very detailed. Xuemo couldn't help but feel respect. To have gone to so many places, this Xiaoxia definitely had been very powerful. Following the Jia map, Xuemo read the information on each Jia one by one with interest. When he found an intermediate Jia called Cloud Sea Jia, a note written about it instantly made him freeze where he stood. At the deepest parts of the water cloud sea, it is possible to hunt for water cloud embryo which has the ability to heal and nurture the soul. Water cloud embryo. Xuemo felt overjoyed. The previous talismans and spells could not make him as happy as this piece of information. Water cloud embryo was in Cloud Sea Jia. Cloud Sea Jia. Xuemo's eyes were bright. He instantly found the position of Sky Water Jia and quickly found a route that led to Cloud Sea Jia. This was a very long route. The route passed through 7 intermediate Jia and 26 small Jia. He had never thought there would be a day that he would need to go to so many places. But he had no fear or timidity. He needed to find water cloud embryo and heal a Gui. A Gui sat silently, Silly Bird, Lilth Pagoda, and the others were surrounding her as they played happily. Ever since a Gui had been injured, the terrifying presence around her had disappeared. Silly Bird and the others did not fear her at all, and in reverse, they were very close to her. Lil, Fire liked to roll around on a Gui's body, and Lil, Black liked to hang on a Gui's hair. Lilth Pagoda liked to circle around a Gui. What made Xuemo feel was the least believable was Silly Bird. This bird, for some reason, was extremely good to a Gui, and was even willing to let a Gui ride her. This was a benefit Xuemo could not even imagine. It might have been a delusion, but Xuemo felt that after having the 4 keep her company, a Gui's wooden face seemed to have a hint of life. Xuemo looked at this scene and felt unusually warm. Suyu soullessly returned to the sect. The scene that occurred earlier in the day was still affecting her mind. She had led the 100 Flower Alliance for more than 20 years, and saw every kind of scheme and plan. But it was the first time she had seen such a straightforward and brutish battle. It seemed that she was only suited to behind-the-scene tactics. She smiled mockingly. Sitting down and taking a drink of Ling tea, her spirit suddenly felt slightly better. At this time, a female disciple ran in a panic. Sect leader. Not good. Shimi was killed by Sky No. 1, and he ran away. Suyu smashed her teacup that she had raised to her lips to the ground, her eyes wide as she lectured angrily, "What are you standing there for? Go pursue him. You crowd of trash. If you can't get him back, all of you don't need to come back." I do frequently translate on the bus, but when it's crowded, I can't type on the computer, so the phone is my alternative. As all of you have said, Pu Yao finally gets his golden core. He's really desperate at this point. Doesn't this chapter of Xuemo sighing over talismans bring back memories of being at Wukong Mountain? Xuemo has greatly improved from the guy who couldn't haul his ling grains up the mountain. Cloud Sea Jia was also the place that manufactured the cloud formation silk, the second elder of the outer hall used in battle. Xuemo's plot armor is at work. The map he needed just happened to drop into his lap, after some effort. Chapter 310, the past grievances. Xu Long surveyed guard camp and saw everyone was working hard at their cultivation. He couldn't help but have a satisfied expression. He knew very well how lacking their talent and foundation was. Only hard work could make up for their shortcomings. The guard camp was completely made up of Xiu slaves. They had encountered countless hardships, their personalities were resilient and exemplified persistence, and they were very reliable. He would try to fulfill any of Pu Yao's demands, no matter how difficult, and urge the others to meet the demands. Over the span of a few months, the guard camp had comprehended the benefits from the previous breakthrough, and now their overall strength had risen a level. The black armor each person wore was even more exquisite, and their shapes had slowly changed. There were now slight differences on each person's armor. Some were broad, others were slender and symmetrical, just like how people were very strong and others were nimble and speedy. After the preliminary stages of cultivation, they had started to develop in different directions. This was an unavoidable result of the intermediate stages of cultivation. Any kind of spell or MO skill would diverge this way. As the one closest to Pu Yao, Xu Long received the most instruction from Pu Yao. No one could rival his strength in guard camp. Even though he had not sparred against the experts from Sky Peak Platoon, everyone secretly speculated that while Xu Long's strength could not match that of Xie Shan and Ma Fan, he shouldn't be far from Nian Lu and Lei Peng. Everyone underestimated him. MO skills were dangerous. The slightest carelessness and one's life would end and their soul shattered. However, if one could overcome that, the speed of progression was not anything that the Xiuxia's Ling cultivation or the Yao's spiritual cultivation could rival. Xu Long's entire life had been full of hardship and suffering. These experiences were like fertilizer to the hardship guard MO skills. As a result, his journey of cultivation was smooth and rapid. Even though he was stern about urging everyone to cultivate, but his actual personality was warm and disliked conflict. Cultivating the MO skill had recovered his youth, but his personality had not changed. The laid-back attitude unique to middle-aged people showed itself on his body. The camp that guard camp made was a long and narrow crescent that shielded almost all of the camp. A light suddenly flashed through Xu Long's eyes. He made a hand motion to the camp guard beside him and then walked towards the outside of the camp. Outside the camp was a dense forest. His ears were very sharp and he heard noise in the woods. There seemed to be many people that were approaching them. Dozens of camp guards tightly followed behind him. The camp guards were wary but not nervous. After the Battle of Golden Crow City, especially after how dangerous and difficult the battle was, it was possible to see their improvement. The sound from the woods became increasingly clear. This time, the other camp's guards also detected it. Everyone stared at the woods waiting for the appearance of the unwelcome guests. Whoosh, a person covered in blood came out of the woods. Xu Long was slightly surprised. However, when he saw the face of this person, his pupils suddenly shrank. A one. When the camp guard beside him saw the person, he couldn't help but exclaim. The person covered in blood heard the exclamation. His body shook, and he raised his head in confusion. A one, heavens, is it really you? A one, you are still alive. Everyone was exceptionally excited. They all recognized this youth covered in blood. The eyes of the youth were confused as he looked at this crowd of people dressed in black armor. Even though he did not recognize them, but they gave him a feeling of familiarity. We can talk later. Tian Mu, take a one to the back. Everyone else, prepare for battle. Xu Long's voice was steady and methodical. His handsome face was serene, but a sharp cold light flashed in the deepest part of his eyes. When the youth heard the name Tian Mu, his entire body shook. He raised his head to look at the large male in black armor in front of him. Tian Mu, big brother Tian Mu. Tian Mu grinned, but it was slightly murderous. Little A1, big brother will help you beat whoever bullies you. A familiar voice and tone allowed the youth to truly believe that this unfamiliar large male in front of him was really Big Brother Tianmu. At the end of his strength, the youth fainted in Tianmu's arms. No one spoke, but threads of black energy came out everyone's armor and wrapped around their legs, waist, and wrists. Looking at Wen's terrible state, there seemed to be a ball of fire burning in everyone's chests. Only Xu Long was motionless without any killing essence coming from his body. Whoosh, whoosh, a crowd of female Xiao charged out of the woods. At the same time, a crowd of female Xiao appeared in the sky. When the leader of this group of female Xiao saw Xu Long, she had a wary look. When she saw Wen in Tianmu's arms, her gaze became sharp and she said, "Why had Sir taken this Xiao slave which has escaped from our sect?" When he saw this female, Xu Long could not control his killing essence any longer. Multiple threads of black energy suddenly shot out of his body like fire and covered his body. He recognized this face. Bai Rufun. Of the females that had been in charge of the Xiao slaves, this female's temper had been the worst. Just a little bit of unhappiness and she would vent on the Xiao slaves. No less than 50 of Xu Long's fellows had died at her hands. Kill. Xu Long's cold voice disappeared in the air. His figure also disappeared from where he stood. The female disciples of Hundred Flower Alliance never thought the other side would act without even exchanging words. With their guard down they were instantly at a disadvantage. Not just Xu Long, but the other camp guards also recognized the female Xiao in front of them and their origins. Each of them had blood-filled eyes as their murderous aura grew. Xu Long suddenly appeared next to Bai Rufun like a ghost. His right hand chopped and a black energy sliced towards Bai Rufun's white face like a blade. At the same time, a thread of black energy flew from the tip of his foot and silently wrapped towards the other's right leg. Bai Rufun paled. The other's first attack was a killing move that did not show any mercy. Panicking, several balls of snowy white plum blossom sword energies came from the flying sword in her hand and shielded her. However, the others were approaching too fast and collided heavily with the sword energies. Bai Rufun was overjoyed, but when she saw the plum blossom sword energies passing through the other's body, her face turned snowy white. Not good, it was an afterimage. Her foot was suddenly in great pain. She didn't even have the time to call out in pain when her neck suddenly hurt. She suddenly felt the world in her vision spin. Then she saw a headless body continuously sprouting fresh blood. The wails echoed. When had the female Xiao from the Hundred Flower Alliance ever experienced such a bloody and murderous scene? In the midst of their terror, they lost their lives. In the blink of an eye, corpses covered the ground. The faces of the Hundred Flower Alliance Xiozha were all pale. Many people uncontrollably screamed and frantically fled. Xu Long raised his head to look at the sky. He picked up a rock from the ground, his body pulling back like a bow, and threw the rock hard. Hum. A soul-shaking howl suddenly sounded. The piece of rock penetrated a female Xiao through the heart and blood sprayed through the air. This female Xiao had forgotten to activate her Ling armor as she had been too afraid. Xu Long's throw frightened the other people into fleeing even faster. Xu Long stopped his fellows that were preparing to give chase. The hardship guard, Mo's skill was powerful, but it had a flaw in that it was not good at flight. This weakness would only disappear when they reached a much more profound stage in their cultivation. Returning to the camp, the first thing Xu Long did was to report this incident to Zhuai Mo. He knew that this incident was very significant. This time, they had severely offended Hundred Flower Alliance, and likely caused the start of a battle against Hundred Flower Alliance. After Zhuai Mo heard Xu Long's report, he did not give blame, but said, "Was there anyone left alive?" Xu Long stilled. "There is one. Go immediately to find where Hundred Flower Alliance is located." Zhuai Mo's expression was stern. "We will attack first, we cannot give them the time to recover." Otherwise, we will be in danger. Xu Long was shocked. He had originally assumed that boss would blame them, but he hadn't expected that boss didn't assign any of the blame on them, and even decided to attack first. He pressed his lips together and immediately turned around. Gong Sun Cha shook his head. This is great trouble. The local powers of Brightwater City had been wary of so many of Xianxia appearing. Now that they had a conflict with Hundred Flower Alliance, the situation was extremely disadvantageous to them. Nothing to worry about. If we don't give them the time to react and finish the fight fast, we can safely leave before everyone else reacts. Suemo wasn't concerned. You don't blame them? Gong Sun Cha asked curiously. Xixiang's decisiveness was unexpected to him. I don't blame them. Suemo shook his head, and said in a matter-of-fact voice, Xu Long and the others are our people. They have a deep and bloody grievance against Hundred Flower Alliance. Who do we help? Of course we help Xu Long. Also, the people wrong in this incident isn't Xu Long and the others. If it was me, I would definitely have charged all the way to Hundred Flower Alliance. However, it isn't too late now. The camp started to quickly move. No one panicked. Even the Xianxia from the forging division had calm faces. When they had set down camp, everyone had known that this would only be a temporary camp. The majority of their possessions were still on the slave transporting boats, and hadn't been moved to the camp, which now saved them labor. In 2 hours, everyone had boarded the slave transporting boats. The 5 slave transporting boats slowly rose in the sky and flew into the southeastern part of Brightwater City. Such a big action naturally could not be concealed from the eyes of the local powers, and Suemo didn't plan on concealing it from them. His thought was very simple. With the fastest speed possible, finish the battle. Their grievances with Hundred Flower Alliance could not be resolved. A local power like Hundred Flower Alliance that was well rooted in this place could gather a terrifying amount of support if they had enough time. To the other powers, they were the outsider. Suemo displayed the decisiveness of a leader. He did not hesitate and decided to attack Hundred Flower Alliance first. Suyu listened to the report with a dark face. She could have never thought this mysterious power was so savage. They had attacked without giving an opportunity to speak, as though they had held a deep hatred. She would never have guessed that the entire guard camp were Xiao slaves they had transported to Little Mountain Jia. Now that the two sides had reached such a step, there was no room to negotiate. She was wary of this mysterious troop, but she wasn't afraid. As one of the largest powers in Sky Water Jia, how could Hundred Flower Alliance stand being humiliated so? How many of the elders are in the sect? She turned and asked one of her disciples. Elder Wang, Elder Mei, and Elder Xiao are all present, the disciple instantly replied. Su Yu's heart was reassured. Invite them for a discussion. You shall personally go to ask. You're tuning into the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.